The reason you clicked on this video means you are looking for some awesome games to play on the Steam Deck. No matter if you love games with engaging gameplay elements, a beautiful world to explore, or jolly characters, I believe there'll be something that will spark your interest. So sit back and relax as I shout out the top 100 games to play on the Steam Deck in 2025. Let's check it out. So let's start out with Crysis Remastered. Crysis Remastered is a nice classical first-person shooter game where you get to engage in epic battles in which you get to fend an island off from invaders. On top of the shooting, you also get to drive various vehicles in which there are a variety of different ones that are really cool as well, and where you also will be able to clear various obstacles as well as even have the ability to become invisible, in which you can stalk patrols. It is a really engaging and really fun, chaotic first-person shooter game. And just as a side note, Crysis is developed by the same developers who made Rise Son of Rome, and it totally makes sense because as I play Crysis Remastered, it really feels as if I'm playing Rise Son of Rome, obviously aside from the characters and the way that it is in first-person shooter fashion as opposed to hack-and-slash fashion in Rise Son of Rome. But yeah, if all that sounds interesting to you, definitely check out Crysis Remastered on the Steam Deck. Now up next is No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky is an action-adventure galaxy game where you get to explore, you get to engage in combat, you also get to go around and mine and obtain various resources, as well as you get to build various bases. It is a really fun game where you can easily pick up and drop whenever, whether you want to play with your friends or play by yourself. It is something that is just really fun and really engaging if you're somebody who just loves these type of survival games where you get to explore the environment in a galaxy world. Now up next is Hoa. What I really love about Hoa is that there is a beautiful soundtrack that brings about the mood and vibe of the game, as well as there are also cute characters where you get to meet on the way back to your hometown to where it all began, as well as there are also those different puzzles that you get to solve where some of them may be a bit annoying, but they are also at the same time not impossible as long as you put your heart and mind to want to solve those different puzzles. What I love about Hoa as well, it just brings about this jolly feel, relaxing vibe as if I'm in nature just going on this hiking adventure, and where it is just animated. It just kind of feels as if somebody just filmed my adventure into the wild and then just made an animated version of me, and as well as an animated version of the nature and the surroundings and whatnot. It is just a game that is just really chill, really relaxing, as well as it just brings about this vibe of just coziness with all these kind of things blended in and the music to top it off as well. So yeah, if you really love these type of hand-painted drawn art, as well as you love these type of games where there is just these jolly characters, definitely check out Hoa on the Steam Deck. Now up next is BioShock Remastered. BioShock Remastered is a really fun first-person shooter game where you get to use various weapons as well as plasmids, in which the plasmids can be used to entice enemies to their traps as well as turn enemies against each other. On top of the plasmids as well as the really cool firearms that you get to use in BioShock Remastered, you also get to engage in hacking minigames in which you get to connect pipes within a time limit, and where if you manage to connect the pipes properly within a time limit, you can access locked areas, open chests, just as a few things that involves hacking minigames. So yeah, if all that sounds interesting to you, definitely check out BioShock Remastered on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Oceanhorn Monster of the Uncharted Seas. Oceanhorn Monster of the Uncharted Seas is the first game in the Oceanhorn series with a colorful world to explore, various islands with different adventures that await, secrets to unfold, treasures to find, as well as enemies and cool bosses to fight. There are also side activities that you can do, such as fishing, as well as puzzles to solve. It is a really fun game where I don't even feel like I'm playing on the screen while on my bed. Rather, I'm outside island hopping or doing all these different adventures on vacation. So yeah, if all that sounds interesting to you, if you want to have a fun indie adventure where you feel like you are enjoying the time of your life, definitely check out Oceanhorn, Monsters of the Uncharted Seas on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Bastion. Bastion is a hack and slash game where you get to fight savage beasts using a huge variety of weapons that you can upgrade. There are plenty of environments that are interesting and artistic to explore as well. What's cool about Bastion, in which I'm really impressed with, is the narrator, which as you go about and attack the different enemies and go about on your journey, the narrator gives a reaction to every move that you do, making it feel like a blend of playing a game but also listening to a bedtime story. It is just something that is just really interesting. But anyways, in Bastion, you are on a mission to uncover the mysteries of the Calamity, and where the Calamity is responsible for the devastation of the land. It's just a really fun hack and slash game that can really pump your adrenaline up, and it's just really addicting and whatnot if you are somebody who is just looking to spend even a few minutes or a few hours to wind down, but you also want to pump your adrenaline up. It's just something that is just really cool and really fitting for that. But anyways, if all that sounds interesting to you, definitely check out Bastion on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Solar Ash. Solar Ash is a fast-paced action platformer game where you get to jump, dash, glide, and fight enemies in a beautiful ancient world, which keeps my adrenaline up. It really feels like a 3D version of Hyper Light Drifter, which is also developed by Hard Machine. But anyways, back to Solar Ash. On top of the fast-paced gameplay, I also love the interesting boss fights, which in themselves have very interesting mechanics, which keep me on my toes at all times. So yeah, if all that sounds interesting to you, definitely check out Solar Ash on the Steam Deck. Now up next is the Forest Quartet. This game is about a band who announced a final concert due to paying their last respects for their lead singer, who unfortunately recently passes away. However, due to their grief and mental health instability, they could not get themselves to perform at the final concert. So you, playing as Nina, who is the lead singer spirit, it is your job to guide each and every one of the band members out of their grief and mental health problems and motivate them to gather up their courage to pay the last respects of the band by performing one last time. Now, the thing about the Force Quartet as far as the gameplay goes is that there are 3 different acts, and where each act resembles the specific insecurity in which a specific member is dealing with. So this game is very much in the side of where the visuals and the analogies, the way they present it, really resembles what is going on in the specific character of the game. The visuals speak to the story and the struggles and whatnot. So the Force Quartet, I will say this, is that there is no bloodshed, there's no that kind of thing. It is really quite relaxing, where the major selling point are, number 1, the meaning of the game, where you just really feel for the specific characters, the struggles and whatnot. But the second thing in which the Force Quartet has for its main selling point is the puzzles, which oftentimes involve connecting those various lights which generate energy, and where this also further illustrates Nina as a spirit being a light and brightening up all the band members, cognitive realm. So yeah, that is just something that is just really emotional as well as really, really laid back at the same time. So yeah, if you're looking for a cozy game where it is really emotional, but at the same time it primarily involves puzzles in the game as you progress, then definitely check out the Force Quartet on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition. Devil May Cry 4 is a really fun, chaotic action game where you get to fight hordes of enemies coming at you in styles. It is just really fun, really chaotic and whatnot. As well as what I love about Devil May Cry 4 is that the game is divided into various missions in which each mission will be graded. And the grading is based on, how much items that you use throughout the various missions. For example, whether or not you use items to restore some of your health during an intense fight, as well as whether or not you use different items to revive you, just as a few examples, as well as, each mission can be graded based on also how many red orbs you collect, because while you go around in the game, you can bust down different items in the game, treat the world as if it is your world, and that will help you to get some red orbs, as well as when you kill different enemies, you also can accumulate these red orbs. So basically you want to try to get as many red orbs collected, and that will guarantee you a higher grade on the mission. As well as another way that the mission can be graded is also the time that you take to complete the specific mission. If you finish the mission sooner, you will be awarded with a higher grade. Now, what I also really love about Devil May Cry is that while fighting those different enemies, there is a grade on the side showing a specific letter, and where there is a tagline depending on how well you fight. For instance, a grade A in Devil May Cry 4 is taglined Atomic. That's just an example. And I will say this, Devil May Cry 4, it may not be my favorite Devil May Cry game. My favorite Devil May Cry game is Devil May Cry 3, but unfortunately, Devil May Cry HD Collection, which includes Devil May Cry 1, 2, and 3, that HD collection does not run well on the Steam Deck. It is really bad. The audio is bad. The audio is messed up. So I feel really dishonored to recommend Devil May Cry 3 since it does not really run well. It works, and I was able to finish the game, but as far as the experience goes, it does not work well, so I could not recommend Devil May Cry 3, unfortunately, even though I love Devil May Cry 3 much more than Devil May Cry 4. But anyways, if you love these type of action games where there are a whole bunch of enemies coming at you and where you can fight in a hack and slash style, definitely check out Devil May Cry 4 on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Deep Rock Galactic Survivor. Deep Rock Galactic Survivor is a spin-off to, Deep Rock Galactic. But in Deep Rock Galactic Survivor, it is not a first-person shooter. It is more of a top-down shooter where you play as a dwarf. Yes, singular dwarf, because unfortunately in Deep Rock Galactic Survivor, you cannot play with your other friends. It is a solely single-player game. So if you are a cooperative gamer fan, sorry guys. But anyways, it is a bullet hell game where you also get to gather resources, you also get to fight those different hordes of enemies, and also upgrade different abilities and gear. So yeah, if you are somebody who is more inclined to want to play the single player aspect to it, as well as you also are more inclined to like roguelite type of game where it is also very chaotic, where there's plenty of enemies to fight, definitely check out Deep Rock Galactic Survivor on the Steam Deck. Now up next is The Wild at Heart. What I really love about The Wild at Heart, not only is the childlike vibe to it, but also what I really love about The Wild at Heart is where it brings about this interesting gameplay style where it blends adventure, blends open world where you get to explore and do all these different stuffs in a very non-linear way, as well as it also blends the real-time strategy subgenre. The whole point about the gameplay is you get to harvest various, little creatures called spritelings, and where there are different types of spritelings which brings about different strengths as well as different weaknesses in which you will have to utilize as your life source in the game. The spritelings basically they help you to either overcome those different obstacles where you need to overcome in order to progress in the game, as well as the spritelings also help you fight those various enemies in order to make the village feel safe and secure. Each type of spriteling, they bring about various types of strengths and weaknesses, as well as also what I really love about The Wild at Heart is how they depict the concept of how teamwork makes the dream work. Aside from the spritelings that help you to fight those different enemies, what I really also love is how the two friends, they complement each other. They all complement on their strengths and weaknesses. Whatever Wake cannot do, Kirby will assist Wake in order to progress in the mission. Whatever Kirby cannot do, Wake will assist. It really resonates in me in the fact that sometimes it's good to have friends that are not necessarily the exact same as me, but where they actually could be opposites, where they can just complement me, complement my weakness, and where they can encourage me and build me up, as well as me doing the same to encourage them and build them up. So yeah, if you really love childhood fantasy type of games where you get to go around and explore in a very non-linear format, as well as you also love these games that have a beautiful soundtrack and where the game may be simple but it may speak to you in many different ways, definitely check out The Wild at Heart on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Void Bastards. Void Bastards is a really fun first-person shooter game where you get to enter various spaceships, fight various enemies while surviving, and salvage parts to repair the ships. If you love these type of first-person shooter games where you get to explore spaceships as well as fight various enemies, definitely check it out on the Steam deck. Now up next is Monster Boy and the Cursed Kingdom. In this game, you play as this protagonist named Jin, who has an evil uncle who unfortunately casts a spell which caused the entire village, all those humans, to turn into animals. Yeah, very, very tragic and very, very unfortunate. So you, as Jin, it is your job to put an end to this madness and at the same time free the spells to make the animals turn back into humans. What really stands out in Monster Boy and the Cursed Kingdom, what I really love about it, is how throughout the journey you get those different types of orbs, which allows you to become different types of animals, which you will have to use to your advantage, where when you swap to those different type of animal forms, it will help you progress in the game, as certain animal forms may be useful for certain types of missions in order to progress. That's what I feel is just really, really cool, as well as I really love the beautiful world that this game entails. I also love the very cute NPCs, as well as it has very interesting boss fights, as well as the soundtrack is also amazing. I feel like the game is really balanced in the soundtrack, where it brings about the vibe of whatever is going on in the game. It is just perfect. It just complements the game to its fullest. So yeah, if you really love a colorful platformer where there is an interesting story, as well as there are lots to do, there are also these different chaotic fights, as well as interesting bosses, as well as there are also a great world to explore and where you can kind of think and strategize and whatnot, definitely check out Monster Boy and the Cursed Kingdom on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Turbo Overkill. Turbo Overkill is a very chaotic first-person shooter game where you get to play as Johnny Turbo, who is half human as well as half metal. How cool is that? And where you get to brutally slice those different enemies with no mercy in public whatsoever. What I really love about Turbo Overkill is that it is a very unique boomer shooter where you get to just do all it takes to literally show everybody who's the boss, as you just mercilessly demolish those different enemies, whether it is shooting them, whether it is slicing them, doing all those different fast-paced action. It's just something that is just really cool and really fun, and where the chaoticness is just so freaking priceless. So yeah, if you really love these type of fast-paced first-person shooter games where there's a very interesting type of gameplay style, definitely check out Turbo Overkill on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Eastward. In this game, you get to, you know it, travel eastward, and you're basically traveling eastward on the journey to escape your civilization, which is unfortunately about to collapse. What I love about Eastward is there are various enemies to fight, as well as there are very charming, towns when you go about along the way traveling eastward, as well as you get to meet very strange, very interesting humans along the way. So yeah, if you love games where there is a big sense of adventure, where it is quite memorable, and where there will be a really great grand story to tell, definitely check out Eastward on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Sifu. Sifu is a kung fu beat 'em up game where you play as a child of a martial arts master. Now unfortunately, the martial arts master dies because he is being killed, so you as the child must do all it takes to avenge your father who has been killed. Now you play in the game, you are playing as a lone ranger. There's nobody that's going to be helping you with the mission. You're going to be doing it yourself, and you get to choose between you want to play as a boy or play as a girl as you fight off those different enemies like a kung fu enthusiast. Now, as far as fighting off the different enemies, you can fight them off like how you do as somebody who is really good at kung fu and the arts and all that, but you also can use your environment to your advantage. Like for example, there are various objects around that you can grab and also use that to fight the different hordes of enemies that you encounter. Now, what I really love about Sifu, what I believe is unique about this game, is the process of dying. So when you die in Sifu, you will be resurrected and you will become stronger, but unfortunately you will be older and have less health. So if you are somebody who dies too many times, it may come to a point where you will not be able to be resurrected due to your health bar being depleted to a certain amount and you are being too old and stuff. So that is also something to keep in mind with Sifu, is that if you are somebody who is not that great at reflexes and you have a horrible time with playing those games that is action-packed with a whole bunch of hordes of enemies coming at you all the time, sifu probably is not for you. But if you're somebody who loves these type of action-filled games where there is a whole bunch of enemies to fight, as well as it gets your adrenaline high, as well as you also love games where there is this feel for the Asian types of vibes, definitely check out Sifu on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Kena Bridge of the Spirit. Kena Bridge of the Spirit is a beautiful game where there is a vibrant world to explore. There are various engaging enemies to fight, various puzzles to solve, as well as bosses that keep you on your toes at all times. Now, as far as Kena Bridge of the Spirit goes, you get to play as Kena, who is a spirit guide, and where it is your job to heal those who are traumatized, because according to the Kena Bridge of the Spirit world, when one is traumatized, they will get into this realm that is in between the actual realm as well as the spirit realm, and you as Kena must rid of the corruption of the different individuals to help them to move on and basically be able to restore them and help them find healing. It is a game in which, in my opinion, not only is the gameplay really engaging, but also what I really love about Kena Bridge of the Spirits is the emotional aspects it brings. Because, like I said, where she helps the different characters to be able to find healing and breakthrough from their traumas, that is something that me personally can get easily touched by the different stories that the game brings, by learning about those different characters, empathizing with the different characters of their different struggles and whatnot. It is a game that speaks to me in many different ways. So yeah, if you really love a game where there is this kind of cartoon-like vibe, and where you also love games that has a whole bunch of action and where it speaks to you in many different ways, definitely check out Kena Bridge of the Spirits on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Road 96. Road 96 is a first-person adventure game, though it's not first-person shooter. But anyways, Road 96 you get to play as various teenagers where you get to assist them to help them cross the national border and to start a new life. Now the thing about Road 96 is that your goal as you journey across as hitchhikers, you must do all it takes to avoid being caught, arrested, or being killed along the way, because obviously you will not be able to start a new life, and so you need to do all it takes to basically avoid all these different bad scenarios and make it all the way across the border. Now, each time as you make your way across the border, or if you go partially and then all of a sudden you get captured or you get killed, you will automatically assume a new role for another teenager. So it is a game in which you will often change roles, because once you are done with one of the teenagers, you will move on to the next teenager. Now, as far as the journey goes, as you go about in Road 96, there are multiple stops where you can either explore and gather different resources to help you to be more energized and be able to continue on the adventure. Now, as far as the stops goes, aside from the different materials that you can gather as you go about exploring, there's also different NPCs in which you can also engage with, and the NPCs, in my opinion, they are really interesting. They bring about the vibe of the story. It helps you learn about the background of Road 96, as well as interacting with them. Depending on what you choose, it will greatly affect the arc of the story. So it is something that is really interesting. If you really love a beautiful, fun adventure game where there are a whole bunch of different unexpected events and where you can live your life as a young, wild, and free teenager, definitely check out Road 96 on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Oxenfree. Oxenfree, in this game you play as Alex, who went with her friends to this abandoned island where you wanna party and have a great time. Now, unfortunate events unfold and you and your friends just get stranded onto the island, and where you and your friends, you gotta work and do all it takes in order to escape the island, as well as in the process of doing so, learn the various mysteries of this mysterious island. This game, it does have horror elements to it, but at the same time, it is also not too scary in my opinion. I'm not somebody who plays horror games all the time, but I can still enjoy from time to time. But for this game, the oxenfree, even though there are some horror elements, it is not something that is just so outrageous that where you will be so nervous and all that different stuff. I still feel that oxenfree is still manageable, especially if you love the other aspects of it, because oxenfree, I would say the major selling point with it is that there are various dialogue options with your friends that you gotta watch out. You gotta make sure to choose a specific dialogue option that you actually want to choose, because it can either cause your friends to either love or hate you. I mean, that will really affect the endings of the game, so that is something to also keep in mind. So yeah, if you love, thriller games where you get to explore these different mysterious lands, as well as at the same time have fun with a great set of characters, and also love these type of games that have these different puzzles that helps you think and work with your brain, definitely check out oxenfree on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Hotline Miami Collection. Hotline Miami Collection includes both games, Hotline Miami 1 as well as Hotline Miami 2 wrong number. Hotline Miami games, they are top-down shooter games where you have to go through each level and kill all those different enemies as well as survive, whether it is via shooting them or using melee combat. It is something that is also very challenging as well if you are not really good at reflexing, not really good at strategizing, not really good at remembering enemy patterns of where they're at and what they do, their attacks, their movesets and whatnot. If you're not good at adapting to all that, it can be very, very frustrating. If you get hit once, you're dead. However, if you are somebody who is really good at these kind of stuffs and really want to test your skills to become a better gamer, to be better at those games that require a lot of reflex as well as a lot of the strategizing and planning, I would highly, highly recommend Hotline Miami Collection. I mean, Hotline Miami Collection, I will also have to say this, is that it is really important that when you start out to play the first game before you play the second game, as Hotline Miami 2 is really dependent on Hotline Miami 1. It builds on from Hotline Miami 1. But Hotline Miami 2, you get access to more characters, you also get access to new weapons, as well as you also get access to new satisfying, finishing moves. But anyways, if you are somebody who loves these type of challenging games and you also like the aesthetics of how it has this comic kind of feel, but yet it's also quite graphical, I would definitely highly recommend Hotline Miami Collection on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Sea of Thieves. Sea of Thieves is a major pirate game where you get to go around and obtain lost treasures and where you can engage in intense battles as well as demolish monsters on the sea and many more as a pirate. It is a really fun, engaging multiplayer game in which you and your friends get to explore this open world and also look for different resources such as food to restore your health, like bananas and mangoes to name a few, as well as you can also go about in this open world environment at your disposal to find crucial weaponry in order to restock, fire bombs as well as cannonballs. Yeah, it is a really beautiful world to explore and live the pirate life. So if all that sounds really interesting and engaging to you, as well as you love a game in which you can easily pick up and drop whenever, like somebody like me who likes to play a lot of single player games and want to play these type of games just to hang out with their friends and explore and marvel at the game, but at the same time do not want to commit to have to play it a certain amount of hours, can play as little and as much as you want, definitely check out Sea of Thieves on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Midnight Fight Express. Midnight Fight Express is a beat 'em up game where you get to fight in a whooping 41 various levels, and it will also be able to use every fighting technique and tool in the environment, and where you get to use both melee as well as firearms to the fullest. What I really love about Midnight Fight Express is that it consists of 3D motion capture graphics, and it also is displayed in top-down perspective, so it is really cool to see what is going on in the game, where normally if a game is in 2D or 3D, you may not be able to see it. You'll be able to see an overview of the perspective, kind of like how if you you were to look at a security camera in a specific building. That's just what it just feels like, in my opinion. But anyways, in Midnight Fight Express, you get to play as Babyface, who gets to fight all over the city before dawn to basically prevent the criminal takeover of the city. It's a really fun, chaotic game with waves of enemies to fight, as well as what I really love about this game is that it also brings about the vibe of, martial arts to it. So yeah, if all this sounds really interesting to you and you really love these type of games where there are tons of enemies to fight and literally beat them up as if it is your city, definitely check out Midnight Fight Express on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Animal Well. Animal Well is a Metroidvania platformer game where you get to play as a blob and you get to explore this labyrinth with a whole bunch of animals that you get to encounter along the way. What I really love about Animal Well is that there are a whole bunch of different secrets that you can reveal as you go about exploring, as well as you get to solve all these different puzzles in this pixel-vibed world. And what's really, really great about Animal Well is that it is a non-linear game in which you can explore and obtain those different items with no particular order. So basically, it is a game in which you can easily pick up and drop whenever you want to, take a break from those hard, intense games. You can easily come here and you can play it and drop whenever. So yeah, if you really love these type of Metroidvania games where there are cute characters, as well as you love these games with a retro vibe type of thing where there is a whole bunch of different places to explore and whatnot, definitely check out Animal Well on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Days Gone. Days Gone is a really fun open world action adventure game set in the Pacific Northwest of America. There are plenty of things to do, such as slaughtering zombie-like creatures who are called freaks in this game, as well as clearing their nests and clearing out hideouts, taking out bounties, as well as there are also plenty of side quests as well as main quests that are also quite engaging as well, with awesome characters to encounter and whatnot. In this game, you get to play as Deacon St. John, who is trying to find meaning in life and survive in a time after a tragic pandemic where your closest companion is your motorbike. Those zombies could lurk around anywhere and anytime, as well as oftentimes they can come at you unexpectedly. There is also a day and night cycle in Days Gone, in which at nighttime there are more zombies outside, making the world much more dangerous and unforgiving. So yeah, if all that sounds good to you and you want to experience a wild and carefree lifestyle, definitely check out Days Gone on the Steam Deck. Now up next is A Short Hike. In this game, you play as Claire, who is a young bird who visits her aunt named May, who is a ranger at Hawk Peak Providential Park. As far as the park goes, there is no cellular service except at the very tip-top peak of the mountain. Now, as far as you as Claire, you have a important call that you're expecting, so you must do all it takes to venture up to the peak in order to receive the call. Now, as far as the game goes, it all involves you going all the way up to the peak. That is the main plot of the story. But as far as going on the adventure, you will meet those different NPCs where you can embark on those different quests that will help you along the way. There are those different quests that you gotta do in which you can earn feathers, which by the way is also very crucial because those different feathers, they help you with your endurance. They help you become stronger and be able to fly higher to achieve those different heights that you need to progress in the game or access different areas that you cannot access before. As well as what I really love about A Short Hike is that there are also treasures that you can find along the way in which you have to solve mysteries by solving riddles. That is also something that I find really interesting because riddles nowadays, that's not something that most people really do much nowadays. So I'm happy that they brought that into the game. So yeah, if you really love colorful, cozy games in which you get to engage with cute NPCs, as well as you love games in which you get to explore and also find those different hidden treasures and go about those different hidden areas and whatnot, definitely check out A Short Hike on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen. Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen has everything included in the original game Dragon's Dogma 1, as well as on top of that, it has a new area with harder enemies, as well as more superior gear. In this game, you get to engage on an epic adventure in a massive open world where you can choose from 9 different vocations, which is basically classes in other RPG games, where it brings about various feels of the game, in which when you choose different types of vocations, aka classes, it will bring about different strengths as well as different skills. And what's unique about Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen is that there are also pawn companions in which they will join you, and they basically work as party members, which keeps you company. And where the pawns, they can be really resourceful. They can speak, they can seek assistance from the MC, as well as give you information about various enemies. On top of traversing, in the different landscapes, there is also a large cityscape with 200 plus NPCs to engage with. So yeah, if you really love these type of RPG games where there is a beautiful world to explore and where there's a variety of sorts of things to do, definitely check out Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen on the Steam Deck. Now up next is It Takes Two. In this game, you and your friend get to play as a couple where they are on the brink of divorce, and where you and your friend must solve those different puzzles which will help each of you realize how much you two need each other and have a different perspective on the relationship, and try to mend the relationship and restore it and into a point where you want to stay as family and you do not want to divorce anymore. What I really love about It Takes Two is how well it is presented, both visually as well as emotionally. As far as the visuals go, I just love how there are these fascinating visuals which brings about the vibe of these Pixar movies, because as a kid I really loved watching those Pixar movies. It is a timeless thing in my opinion, where there's just this beautiful artistic world which is childlike and cartoon-like and full of imagination. As far as how I feel emotionally about this game is as me and my friend go about playing those two characters and go about, overcoming those different obstacles, overcoming those different challenges, overcoming those different puzzles, as well as engaging in those various mini games. It really makes me want to cheer for the couple in which they receive healing, decides to reconcile to each other in the relationship and restore it, and where they are not just staying together because of their daughter, but also, more importantly, they're staying together because they believe that it is important to keep their bond, that they are meant to be together, rely on each other to encourage and build each other up. So yeah, if you really love these type of games in which not only the visuals are just really pleasing, and where you also really love how the game can potentially speak to you in many different ways, definitely check out It Takes Two on the Steam Deck. Now up next is GTA 5. GTA 5, what I really love about the open world aspect of Grand Theft Auto 5 is that you get to traverse either in vehicles or by foot, and you get to complete various missions which consists of shooting and driving, as well as you get to explore this fictional city called Los Santos, based on, present day Los Angeles. As well as what I really love also is that you also get to explore the countryside, which consists of towns, farms, mountains, and many more, and you get to do everything you can to your disposable. Now, just as a heads up, GTA 5, even though it says unsupported on the Steam Deck, it is rated as unsupported, but it still runs on the Steam Deck. The unsupported badge just means that GTA Online does not work. The campaign is totally playable, just as a heads up. But anyways, if you love these type of games where there is an open world aspect to it, and where you can just go around stealing those different cars, driving them, treating it as if it is your city, definitely check out GTA 5 on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Spider-Man 2018. Spider-Man 2018, you get to play as Peter Parker, who has to balance his personal life with things that matter the most to him, as well as defending New York City from a deadly virus. What I really love about Spider-Man 2018 is that you get to fight hordes of enemies in this open world action adventure in Manhattan, New York, as well as what I really love about Spider-Man 2018 is the iconic antagonists that they brought from the various movies as well as TV shows. That is something that I feel like is really cool, that I get to play as a character to fight off those different antagonists and beat them. It's just really fun, as well as what I really love about Spider-Man 2018, since this is a open world action game, is that I also love to roam around, engage in those various side quests as you go about and help those people in town. It just brings about the vibe of the city and whatnot, as well as also love the different main quests, the different side activities where you go about and doing those different challenges, such as doing the bomb challenge, combat challenge, to name a few, as well as go into those warehouses and fight those different waves of enemies. It's just a game in which it is just so fun and so vibrant and whatnot, as well as also love to just swing around in the city, just marveling at the amazing landscape of Manhattan. If you are somebody who loves open world games and you love action games where there is so many things to do in the game, as well as you also be able to experience an awesome story, definitely check out Spider-Man 2018 on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Fallout 4. Fallout 4, it is an open world futuristic game set in the year 2287 around Boston, Massachusetts area, aka the Commonwealth. Now as far as Fallout 4 goes, there are plenty of weapons in the game that you can mod and customize, in which you can take down various enemies that are featured in the game. As well as in Fallout 4, you can also build various settlements in which you'll be able to take charge of. So yeah, it is a really engaging open world game that I highly recommend on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Sea of Solitude. Sea of Solitude, in this game you get to swim, sail, and jump across various rooftops as you navigate this fictional depiction of Berlin, Germany, which is flooded. In this game you get to play as Kay, who unfortunately morphed into a monster due to her negative emotions, because when you have negative emotions, they kinda just metaphorically becomes something that is extremely nasty. But anyways, in this game, it is your goal to help her to navigate through her depression and to find healing and closure in the past mistakes that she made in her life. As you go about exploring various areas, your goal is to basically follow the light to clear the corruption, which will transform a stormy area with dark clouds and all that filled with dangerous creatures to become a sunny area full of life. As you go about in the game, you will also learn about Kay and her dysfunctional family, as well as the struggles and all that. So yeah, if you're looking for a game that is beautiful and where there's a lot of exploring and where it speaks to you in many different ways, especially touching in the topics of depression and healing and whatnot, definitely check out Sea of Solitude on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Knights and Bikes. Knights and Bikes is a fun, chaotic adventure game where you and your friend get to play the role of two friends, where they are in this kind of resort camping park where you and your friend will go around on really fun, childlike adventures, whether it is riding the bikes, whether it is throwing frisbees, whether it is hunting for treasures, completing various missions, as well as solving different puzzles, which all involve teamwork and making the dream work. What I love about Knights and Bikes, is that there are also mystic, mythical creatures in the game that just sparks the imagination side of the game. And what I really believe Knights and Bikes shine as well is that there are also fun, chaotic bosses that you and your friend need to strategize and plan to figure out how to tackle those different bosses. So yeah, if you really love these type of childlike games where it is just fun and where the characters are all young, wild, and free, definitely check out Knights and Bikes on the Steam deck. Now up next is Figment. Figment is a fun, jolly action-adventure game with a lot of puzzles to solve, cool enemies to fight, as well as bosses to encounter. In this game, you get to play as Dusty, who got his journal stolen by a mysterious creature, and where you, as Dusty, accompanying with your friend Piper, who is a bird, goes on this mission to basically retrieve his journal, which was stolen. Now, at first, the mission for the journey was to basically fetch his journal back, but then the journey became much more meaningful. As I progress and play as Dusty, I get to witness Dusty's growth, because at first in the beginning, he sounded like a really grumpy, insecure individual due to some traumatic events in the game, but then later on, as he goes about the journey, he builds courage and breaks from his past despair, and where he can just face life head on. Now, though, as you can see in the game, it looks really light-hearted and it feels like a cartoon-like game for kids, but even as me as an adult, it really speaks to me in many different ways. It helps me build my courage, build my confidence as I learn the different lessons in Figment, as well as the illustrations as I go about in the various locations in Figment, as well as deal with the different enemies, the different locations, and the different enemies that I face. They all have names which resemble negative things in life, and where you play as Dusty, basically you are helping him face those different negativities in life, and where he can have a positive aspect in life. So yeah, if you are looking for a game which is jolly and fun and also touches on the topics of mental health and healing, definitely check out Figment on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Spiritfarer. In Spiritfarer, you play as Stella, who is accompanied with her cat Daffodil, in which it is your job to obtain and take care of the various spirit friends by helping to send their souls to the afterlife. Now, in this game, you build a boat and where you operate as an Airbnb on the boat, and where, all these different spirit friends in which you obtain, they will start living on the boat, basically taking this voyage to the place where you will send them off into the afterlife. And throughout the journey, you get to gather various resources as you explore the world, upgrade your boat, which provides various buffs to the boat, which makes the boat become more effective and be able to withstand more terrains or help it to be more efficient in order for it to be able to travel faster and much better. As well as what really stands out in Spiritfarer are the various quests from the spirit where you have to do to make them feel peaceful and at home, and where as you take on those different quests from the various spirits, you get to learn those emotional backstories of the different spirits. So it is just really, really touching as well as really, really emotional. But yeah, if all this sounds really good to you, definitely check out Spiritfarer on the Steam Deck. Now up next is New Super Lucky Tales. In this game, you get to play as, Lucky, who needs to help his sister protect an ancient book called the Book of Ages. What I love about New Super Lucky Tales is how the levels comprise a variety of things to do. Some of them involve simply a 2D side-scroller where you go around and find secrets and clear various objectives, while other levels involve solving a puzzle in order to progress. As well as when not currently playing a level, each world has a hub which is quite fascinating, in which you can explore around freely, collect coins, smash objects, as well as engage with cute characters. So yeah, if you really love platformer games where there are those jolly characters, where you go on these jolly adventures, where there are a variety of different types of levels, definitely check out New Super Lucky Tales on the Steam Deck. Now up next is The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. What I really love about it is that there is a vast open world where it is really lively. There's a variety of the busy city life where you can do a lot of different things, as well as there's also wild areas flooded with danger. There's a variety of these different stuffs in this vast open world. In this game, you get to play as a monster slayer known as the Witcher, and where you can travel on foot, by boat, by horse, just as a few examples, and there are tons of side things to do, such as horse racing, boxing, romancing females after completing certain quests, as well as you get to visit different blacksmiths where you get to craft better weapons. If you love these type of open world games where there's a lot of things to do and there's a vibrant world to explore, as well as there is a great story and whatnot, definitely check out The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Subnautica. Subnautica is a survival game taking place in the underwater world, which is so amazing and wonderful and beautiful and vibrant in life. It is a survival game with a vast open world to explore where you can go around and gather those different resources such as water, food, as well as necessary things to craft your gear in order to survive in the underwater world. There are a variety of terrains in this ocean wildlife world, whether it is exploring those different caves, exploring those different volcanoes, there's different forests, as well as there are just many more of these variety of different terrains to explore, gather resources, those necessities in order to survive. So yeah, if you are looking for an open world game where it takes place in the ocean, in the underwater world and whatnot, definitely check out Subnautica on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Crash Bandicoot and Sane Trilogy. Crash Bandicoot and Sane Trilogy is a collection of the first 3 Crash Bandicoot games, in which each game you get to play as Crash Bandicoot. In each level you get to spin, jump, destroy crates, and collect necessary items to achieve your mission of stopping Dr. Neo Cortex from taking over the world. What's cool about the trilogy is that it adds unified checkpoints, pause menus, as well as, most importantly, the ability to play as Coco, Crash's sister, on some of the levels. So yeah, if you're somebody who loves Crash Bandicoot, if those games were something in which you played as a kid and you want to revisit them, but at the same time you don't have access to the games back in the day, then definitely check it out. Now up next is Elder Scrolls V Skyrim Special Edition. Elder Scrolls V Skyrim is an open world RPG game that is really iconic, really popular, really classical, and it is really timeless. In this game you can choose between whether or not you want to play in a first person or a third person perspective, and you get to explore an environment that's inspired by Scandinavia, and where in Skyrim there is a diverse variety of races in which you can choose from, as well as there is a variety of various terrains such as the wilderness, such as the towns, such as the various dungeons, the caves. The possibilities are just endless. It is just a beautiful world to explore and engage with, and as well as there are also a variety of various enemies. It is just something that is just really remarkable and really fun, as well as really engaging, in which you can spend so many hours there to dive deep and you will not feel bored. So yeah, if this all sounds great to you, definitely check out Elder Scrolls V Skyrim on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Gris. In this game you get to play as a young girl dealing with depression, which is illustrated by everything in the game, whether it is her dress, whether it is just the doom and gloom landscape. They all bring about this analogy of depression and sadness, obviously hence the name Gris. In case you don't know, Gris is Spanish for gray. But anyways, what I love about Gris is that you get to platform around and meet those different cute NPCs, as well as, even though there are enemies that you got to avoid, they are not the ones in which you have to do a whole bunch of technical skills in order to defeat them. No, you just avoid them, and if you do not manage to avoid them, you have to start over at the last checkpoint. There is no graphical bloodshed and whatnot. And what I really love about Gris is that as you go about and progress and solve those different puzzles to bring hope and healing for the girl, as well as breakthrough, as you do that as an analogy to assist the girl in receiving healing and cure, what happens is that it will bring the atmosphere to life. Where the atmosphere used to be just gray and doom and gloom, it will become vibrant in colors, which will further illustrate that there is hope, and the girl receives hope and healing. So it is a game in which it is not just cozy, but I will say is that it also just brings about this emotional kind of feeling, this emotional sense of healing, and where it can speak to each and every one of you in many different ways. So yeah, if you really love these type of cozy platformer games in which the visuals are in sync with illustration about life, and where you love these type of games where you just bring about hope to the character and whatnot, definitely check out Gris on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Alex Kidd in the Miracle World DX. Alex Kidd in the Miracle World DX is a remake of the original iconic Alex Kidd platformer back in 1986. And in this remake, it consists of all the levels from the original game as well as new ones. What I love about Alex Kidd in the Miracle World is that there are various puzzles to solve, various secret areas to discover, as well as various items to obtain. You know, some items are power-ups where they bring about certain buffs for Alex Kidd to help him to be able to tackle the stages better, but there are also some items that are vehicles which they help Alex traverse better. For example, there are some vehicles that help Alex to have the ability to fly, as well as some specific power-ups which help Alex to be able to attack enemies much easier. Personally, I will say this: if you are somebody who loves Super Mario games back in the day, back in the original Nintendo, and you are somebody who is looking for something that is a bit of an alternative, but at the same time also having their own twist in the game, there are a lot of things that are quite different compared to Super Mario Bros. But if you're looking for a worthy alternative, in my opinion, definitely check out Alex Kidd in the Miracle World DX on the Steam Deck. Now, up next is Astroneer. Astroneer, in this game, you can play up to 4 players, and where you and 3 other friends can explore outer space. As you explore outer space, you can collect different resources to build and modify your bases, however way you want to imagine your bases to look like. And your goal is basically doing all it takes to survive in this mysterious solar system. Now, even though Astroneer doesn't have monsters, deadly creatures, or any of those traditional enemies that you will find in video games, but there are various environmental hazards that you have to watch out, such as geysers, such as offensive floras, which can expel acid clouds, as well as explode when you get too close, or more importantly, you gotta watch out to make sure you have adequate amount of oxygen, as a few examples of the environmental hazards. But anyways, if you really love a chill building simulator game where you get to imagine you and your friends are living your life on mysterious planet, definitely check out Astroneer on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Pizza Tower. Pizza Tower is a platforming game where you get to play as a pizza chef who must do all it takes to climb up a tower and prevent the destruction of his pizza restaurant from his villain. What I love about Pizza Tower is the chaos where you are on your feet fighting various enemies, sliding through breakable barriers, dashing, jumping, finding secrets, and many, many more. The game is divided into 5 floors with 4 levels and a boss level in each floor. What's challenging about Pizza Tower is once you reach the end of levels, you will activate what's called
pizza time,
in which you must rush back to the beginning of the level within a time limit, as failing to make it back on time will cause you to have to retry the level. So yeah, it could be really challenging and frustrating, especially if you are somebody who is not really good at these fast-paced platformer games. But if you love platformers where you can imagine becoming a kid again and where chaos ensures in a fun and lighthearted way flooded with laughter, definitely check out Pizza Tower on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Cult of the Lamb. Cult of the Lamb has a mixture of hack and slash elements and survival elements to it. In this game, you gotta manage a colony of different animals in which you get to grow your colony by going on missions where you fight hordes of enemies in hack and slash style and in roguelike fashion via procedurally generated areas, and face a boss in which you must defeat the boss and then adding an animal as an additional member to your colony. Now, as far as the colony goes, it is your your job to nurture your flocks both physically and spiritually, or else they will betray you or starve to death. Whether it is using their help to build structures to enhance the colony, preach a sermon of encouragement, being attentive to their health, you must do all it takes to be attentive to the condition of your flocks. So yeah, if you love a colorful, lighthearted hack-and-slash game with roguelike and survival elements to it, definitely check out Cult of the Lamb on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Remnant from the Ashes. Remnant from the Ashes is a Souls-like RPG shooter game set in a futuristic world that is extremely devastating, being dominated by those evil creatures known as the Root. So you and those different players, it is your job to defeat the Root. What I really love about Remnant from the Ashes is that you get to equip 3 different weapons. You get to equip 2 firearms as well as 1 melee weapon, which is something that I really love. It just really gives more varieties on how to play the game. There's more options as far as how you want to fight those different enemies. And what I really love about this game as well is that it is a randomly generated world, in the sense that if you and up to 2 other friends, if you guys die and later come back to the same part of the world, there is also some unpredicted things that could potentially happen. There could be different enemies that spawn. But what I have to say is that since it is considered a Souls-like RPG shooter game, it can be really challenging as well. The different enemies, the different bosses, the different types of enemies, they are very punishing and very merciless as well. So it is really important when encountering those different enemies is that you really gotta learn how to be quick as in quick in reflexes, as well as really quick in strategizing and adapting to the different ways those different enemies fight. Because if you are too slow, you will easily die. So if you are somebody who is looking to play a game in which it is really fun, really challenging, as well as really chaotic, definitely check out Remnant from the Ashes on the Steam Deck. Now up next is the Little Gator game. In this game, you get to play as, you know it, a little alligator, and where you get to assist him as he goes about and make new friends in these various islands. What I really love about the Little Gator game is you get to explore this beautiful cartoon-like world where there are various islands where you get to swim, you get to glide, you get to run, as well as you also get to complete those different side quests and make new friends and make new connections. As well as what I really love about the Little Gator game is that you can go about also doing what you want to do, such as slicing cardboard-like objects that resemble, real-life wildlife nature. As well as when you slice them, you will gain this type of currency where you get to upgrade your gear, as well as you get to also put on some cosmetic gear that makes you more interesting and whatnot. And by the way, there will be a DLC named In the Dark, which is gonna be released later on. There's no specific date yet about when it's gonna be released. It is still TBA, but just to give you a heads up, if you are somebody who is really interested in Little Gator game and you want a bit more of it, you don't have enough of the Little Gator game. But anyways, if you really love these type of jolly open world games where you get to embark on this place, where you get to explore this really colorful world where there are also cute characters to engage with and also very interesting side quests and whatnot, definitely check out the Little Gator game on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Enter the Gungeon. Enter the Gungeon is a bullet hell dungeon crawler roguelike game where you get to fight through all the way to the bottom of the dungeon, where throughout the way as you fight, there will be hordes of different enemies you have to encounter, as well as bosses which are all merciless, and where you gotta work on your reflexes. You gotta have really strong, high and fast reflexes in order to tackle those different enemies and bosses, as well as you gotta have some kind of really strong, really big brain to also learn about those different habits, those different enemies and bosses fight. It is not a button mashing game. It is something in which you gotta react really fast, but at the same time learn how to adapt to those different enemies, the fight style and whatnot. And that is the key in order to progress in the game and in order to overcome no matter what obstacle you face. So yeah, it is a really fun, but also at the same time it can be very frustrating as well. Even if you are playing with another buddy, it could also be really frustrating because, like I said, the enemies are very merciless and they are also something in which you gotta work on your fundamentals to the fullest extent and also learn how to adapt to those different enemies. If you are somebody who is up for a challenge, who is up to really test your reflexes as well as test how you can work your brain to figure out how to easily adapt to different scenarios, if you like all that kind of stuff, then enter the gungeon. Yes, enter the gungeon is definitely for you. It will not disappoint. Now up next is A Way Out. A Way Out is a co-op adventure game where you and your friend get to each play as prisoners who must escape prison because you and your friend both believe that you are wrongfully jailed by a mutual culprit, which pins his guilt on the both of you. Yes, very, very tragic and very, very terrible. Now, what I really love about A Way Out is that even though the title suggests that it is just escaping the prison, hence the name A Way Out, but it is much more than just a way to free yourself out from the prison. As you assist the characters to escape, there will be also these different unexpected events as you go about this journey to confront the culprit and settle things once and for all. There are all these different plot twists and unexpected turn of events that just keeps me on my feet, and where it just brings about the spice of this co-op adventure where you have to always work together to make sure that both of you will be able to be free, and where it is a win-win situation. So yeah, if you really love these type of co-op adventure thrillers where at a point where it could be just peaceful, but at another point it could be really intense where you are in a gunfire, major chaotic battle, if you love these kind of stuff and where you will have the adventures of your lifetime, definitely check out A Way Out on the Steam Deck. It will definitely not disappoint. Now up next is Broforce. Broforce is an action-packed run-and-gun platformer game where you get to play cooperatively with up to 3 other friends, and where there are various co-op modes as well as multiplayer modes. One of my favorite co-op modes in Broforce is Explosion Run, where you get to team up with your friends and get to clear out those different levels where there is a whole bunch of chaoticness going on, like a whole bunch of explosions and enemies to fight. And what I also really love about Broforce is that there is a retro vibe feel to it. It brings about the vibe of those good old days of gaming. So yeah, if all that sounds great to you, definitely check out Broforce on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Cuphead. Cuphead is a very challenging yet thrilling run and gun action game where it heavily emphasizes on those various tough and merciless boss fights. What I really love about Cuphead is also the aesthetics of it. It just brings about this vibe of those old cartoon-like movies. In this game, you and your friend gets to play as Cuphead and Cuphead's sibling Mugman, and where when you're playing together, you get to travel through various cartoon-like worlds where you get to obtain a lot of cool weapons as well as learn a lot of different skills and also discover the various secrets, and where you work together and also go in that same page of feeling each other's pain and excitement and whatnot. So yeah, if this really sounds interesting to you, if you really love these type of adventure games where there's a cartoon-like vibe, but also it is something in which it can really test your skills in gaming and whatnot, definitely check out Cuphead on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Lords of the Fallen. Lords of the Fallen is a Souls-like dark fantasy game in which there are hundreds of unique weapons to use, as well as a vast interconnected world. What's cool about this world is that there are both the world of the living as well as the world of the dead, in which you must navigate, in which they are all very unforgiving and whatnot. There are also various secret treasures, as well as interesting enemies and tough bosses to fight, in which it will pump your adrenaline up. So yeah, if you love a challenging game in which it could keep you busy for a while and where it really feels satisfying as you progress, definitely check out Lords of the Fallen on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Lethal Company. Lethal Company is a co-op horror first-person survival game set in a futuristic world where you and up to 3 other friends get to assume the roles as contractors of the company, and where it is your job to explore abandoned moons and collect certain amounts of scraps and go back to return and sell them to the company. Now, as far as the abandoned moons goes, there are various hazards, various traps, as well as various harmful creatures that get in your way, in which you gotta watch out. And where in this game, it's all about being careful and collecting enough scraps in order to meet the quota that the company sets for you. If you love horror survival games and where there is a whole bunch of unexpected things to happen in the game, definitely check out Lethal Company on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Quantum Break. Quantum Break is a third-person action-adventure shooter where you get to not only shoot hordes of enemies, but where each type has different behaviors where you have to learn and adapt. And what's cool about Quantum Break is that I really love how you get access to time powers. And time powers are basically powers where you get to manipulate time to either accomplish different tasks or take down different enemies. Two of my favorite time power gameplay mechanics is time stop as well as time echoes. In time stop, you get to freeze different enemies in time where they get locked in a bubble and you get to shoot at them with no mercy and disrespectfully and kill them. And where time echoes, you get to replay certain instances in the events of the game where you either, number one, need to solve the puzzle in order to progress in the game because currently there are obstacles that block your way, or number two, you will also be able to use time echoes where you basically be able to learn about past events of the story of Quantum Break. And also another thing about this game too is that there is story junctions. There are plenty of different junctions that basically affect the plot of the game. There are multiple endings as well. So yeah, if you're looking for a third-person action-adventure shooter where there are a whole bunch of different enemies to fight, as well as there is also a story where you can experience multiple endings, if you love all that, definitely check out Quantum Break on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Creatures of Ava. In this game, you get to play as Vic, who's on a planet called, you know it, Ava. In this game, you get to clear the land from corruption known as the Withering, as well as in the meantime tame various creatures from the Withering, in which clears the corruption in their minds and helps them to no longer be foes but friends to you. Now once you clear different various creatures, the corruption in their minds, you can play your flute to basically guide them to the nearest rescue robot station in order to transport them to your ship with the goal of preserving the various species. Also, each animal that you restore them to their normal state where they become your friend, they all have their own strengths and weaknesses where they can overcome certain obstacles to get into certain areas where you normally cannot do on your own. And what's cool about that is you actually am able to get into a mode where you'll be able to play as the specific animal and control the actual animal as if it was you, and where you overcome the certain obstacle and be able to access certain areas that you cannot access before. So that's something that is really cool, as well as there are also a lot of side quests as well as main quests that are also intriguing as well, and where as you progress in the story, you will also be able to earn certain tools and certain abilities where they will help you also access certain areas that you normally cannot do before. So yeah, it is just really fun, really cool, as well as really engaging. Now, another thing that's really cool about Creatures of Ava is that since you are on the mission to save the different animals from the corruption, you get to document each and every one of those creatures. No matter if it is the ones that you already tamed or those that are still in the wild, you can do so by taking out your in-game camera and capturing a shot of the various animals. And once you capture a shot of the various animals, there will be details which will be recorded about the specific type of animal that you captured. It is a really cool game with vibrant colors. There are also really cute characters and whatnot. So yeah, if all that sounds really interesting to you, if you love these type of adventure games where there are no bloodshed and where you feel like you are making a difference, definitely check out Creatures of Ava on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Bayonetta. Bayonetta is a renowned fast-paced hack-and-slash game with chaotic battles as well as where you can just go around and fight hordes of enemies with no mercy whatsoever, and where in the meantime collect all the different kind of rings and whatnot, and where you also need to work your brain to solve different puzzles in order to progress in the game, as some parts may not be direct and they don't really show clearly about objectives of where to go and whatnot, so you have to really work your brain to try to figure out and just poke around and whatnot. That is just something that is really cool. But anyways, as far as Bayonetta goes, you play as Bayonetta, the last survivor of the witch clan, and where you must fight against angelic beings, and where as you play and accompany her on her journey, you get to witness her protecting herself and the world around her. What's cool about Bayonetta is that the missions are actually divided into what they call verses, in which the verses works as segments of a chapter, and where when you complete each verse, you are actually graded by how well you complete the segment through a given medal. Like for instance, if you do it really well, you could get a platinum. If you do it not so well, you could get a gold. Just as a few examples as far as the way that Bayonetta is graded. But anyways, if all that sounds interesting to you, definitely check out Bayonetta on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons. In this game, you get to play as, you know it, two brothers who lost their mother at sea, and if that is not sad enough, they also have an ill and dying father who can only be cured by drinking from the water from the tree of life. So you, as the two brothers, must do all it takes to embark on this journey, which is filled with danger, to get to the tree of life, to fetch the water, bring it back home, and hope that their father will get well by drinking from the water from the tree of life. What's unique about this game is that you get to control the two brothers simultaneously. You control one of the brothers on the left buttons of your Steam Deck, while you control the other one with the right buttons of your Steam Deck. Now, though some may consider the control layout to be clunky, I personally really enjoyed controlling the two brothers simultaneously on the left and the right side of the Steam Deck. To me, I just feel this sense of emotional attachment to the two brothers when controlling both of them on my Steam Deck simultaneously. It just brings about a warmth inside of me where I feel the love and the bond between the two brothers, that they would do all it takes to go on this journey and see the journey as one to help their father get well. So yeah, if you're looking for a game where there are a whole bunch of different puzzles to solve, as well as you really am looking for a game where there's an emotional story to it, definitely check out Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons on the Steam Deck. Now up next is ReCore Definitive Edition. ReCore Definitive Edition is an action game where you get to play as Jolly Adams, one of the last humans living on a planet called Far Eden, which is occupied by robotic foes. Along with you also have some companions, which are Corebots, aka robot machines, who will help assist you on various missions, which involve fighting various enemies as well as solving various puzzles. What's cool about combat is that the enemies all have these color codes which resemble their weaknesses to a matching color code of ammunition. For instance, if an enemy has a red code, you should use a firearm with a red code, as well as, if possible, use a core bot with a same colored core to take down the enemy effectively, as the color code basically resembles the specific color code for the weakness of the enemy where if you use a specific matching color, it will really damage the enemies greatly. Now, I'm not saying that you use a different color, you will not be able to kill the enemies, but it will just be a lot harder. The color code just gives out the intel for the weakness of the specific enemy, the specific color code weakness for the specific enemy. Anyways, if you love, action games with chaotic fights, combating various enemies in an unknown futuristic world, definitely check out Recore on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Greek Memories of Azure. Greek Memories of Azure is a beautiful platformer where your goal is to lead 3 siblings to help them flee from the land of, Azure. What I really love about Greek Memories of Azure is the amazing soundtrack, as well as the interesting bosses that you get to encounter, as well as a beautiful world that is fully immersive that I get to explore, in which as I go about playing the game, it makes me feel as if I'm accompanying the 3 siblings, that the 3 siblings are my friends, and that we are going on an interesting adventure while going about hiking and whatnot. As well as what I really love is that as you go about playing Greek Memories of Azure, there are also really interesting characters to meet, as well as different puzzles to solve in which you need to do in order to progress in the platformer game. As well as, more importantly, what I really love about this game is that you also get to control all 3 of the characters simultaneously. And why I say that it is really cool is that it really makes me feel the bond among the 3 siblings, that they are in the adventure together, in which they do not separate. However, with all that in mind, I have to warn you that the game could be a bit tricky because they live and die together. What I mean by that is that in case you are fighting a specific tough enemy or a tough boss, if one of them happens to die, guess what? The mission fails and you will have to start over with the boss fight. Start over from where you left off. So that is something that could be potentially a challenge, in which you will have to pay attention to all 3 of the siblings at all times in order to progress in the game and survive in helping them flee from the land of Azure. That is something in which it is really important. So yeah, if you really love an emotional platformer game where there are interesting characters as well as an amazing soundtrack, and where you will have to be on your toes at all times, definitely check out Greek Memories of Azure on the Steam Deck. Now up next is the Riftbreaker. The Riftbreaker is a base building real-time strategy game where you play as Ashley, who gets to explore and gather various resources, and where you get to use the resources to build necessary buildings for your base, whether it is research buildings, whether it is energy buildings, whether it is ammunition buildings. And what I really love about this game is as you get to build and you get to explore, you get to attack hordes of enemies in hack and slash style, where you must do all it takes to fend off the enemies from destroying the base. So yeah, if you really love these type of base building games where there is a whole bunch of action to it, where there are hordes of enemies that you gotta deal with, as well as you get love, where there is a beautiful world to explore and find those different nuts and cranks, definitely check out Riftbreaker on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Undertale. Undertale is a top-down RPG game where you get to play as a child who unfortunately falls into the underground. The underground is a place where basically it is an isolated area separated from the earth from a magical barrier. Now, what I really love about Undertale is there are plenty of towns and caves to explore, as well as solve those various puzzles, as well as there are also various enemies and monsters to encounter, and where the monsters you can choose to whether kill them, whether to run away from them, or whether to befriend them. And what is really interesting about these different choices, these different options, whether to kill them, whether to run away from them, whether to befriend them, is that no matter what choice you pick, it will greatly affect the plot of the game, and it will lead to various different types of endings. So yeah, if you really love these type of retro vibe type of games where there is a whole bunch of different places to explore, as well as there's an awesome story with a whole bunch of different endings, definitely check out Undertale on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Loopmancer. Loopmancer is a 3D roguelite game where you get to play in a cyberpunk-like universe and where you assume the role of a Chinese detective where you must go after a gang in Dragon City, which is a futuristic fictional city. The thing about Loopmancer is that every time you die, you get resurrected again and you have to restart the mission again to deal with the various gang overlords. What really shines in Loopmancer is the colors. They really pop on a screen, especially an OLED screen. So if you are somebody who loves these type of hack and slash games and you have a Steam Deck OLED, definitely check out Loopmancer. But even if you are somebody who just loves these type of Chinese style vibe type of games and you love hack and slash games, you will also have fun with the game on the Steam Deck LCD. So yeah, definitely check out Loopmancer on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. It is an action ninja game which takes place around the 1500s in ancient Japan, where during that time there is a constant life and death conflict. In this game, there are tons of merciless enemies to fight in an unforgiving world with really tough, engaging bosses. In this game, you play as a disgraced and disfigured shinobi, aka a ninja, who must go on a mission to save his lord who got captured and basically restore his honor. So yeah, this is a game that is really hard and where it is also really punishing, so I would not recommend if it is for somebody who is not that great at gaming or is a beginner in gaming. But if you are somebody who loves games that are challenging, as well as if you love games that blend stealth and face-to-face combat with deadly tools and where you can fight like a savage ninja, then definitely check out Sekiro Shadows Die Twice on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Sunset Overdrive. Sunset Overdrive is an open-world futuristic game set in the year 2027. In this game, you get to 3D explore this fictional city called, you know it, Sunset City, and where as you go around in parkour style, you can wall run, you can grind rails, you can zip line, air dash, and many more. And while you're doing that, what's really cool is you also get to fight those different enemies called mutants, which are basically humans that were transformed after taking an energy drink made by Fizco. And so that is something that is just really fun, really chaotic, and where there are also plenty of weapons that you get to use using a weapon wheel, where there are just various weapons that you can customize and whatnot to better take down those different mutants. And what I really love about Sunset Overdrive also is there are plenty of things to do in the game, whether it is going about the story campaign as well as, you know, different side quests, which brings about the value of this really engaging, really chaotic open world game. On top of the main quests and side quests, I also love how there are also a whole bunch of side activities to do in Sunset Overdrive, such as the challenges. They are just so amazing, in which they work like a test to test your skills on how well you can manage and play in the game to survive in this open world game full of mutants. Even though Sunset Overdrive is listed as unsupported, with easy tinkering steps pretty much found on ProtonDB, the game will run perfectly fine. So yeah, if you really love open world games where there are chaotic enemies to fight and where you are on your feet at all times while exploring a fictional city, definitely check out Sunset Overdrive on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Persona 5 Strikers. Persona 5 Strikers is the sequel to Persona 5, and where it is a real-time action hack and slash game in which you get to fight hordes of enemies mercilessly, and also in the meantime summon personas for special moves and whatnot. Persona 5 Strikers features an amazing story in which it really teaches me more about life, what I should value and whatnot, as well as there are also these returning amazing characters from Persona 5, plus also some interesting characters as well as villains that are added that are only in Persona 5 Strikers that are quite interesting and whatnot, in which, you know, the characters in Persona 5, they really motivate the new characters, some villains as well, to help them turn from evil to become good. So that is just something that is really really cool and really fun and whatnot. Now, up next is Stellar Blade. Stellar Blade is a hack-and-slash style game with a bit of RPG elements to it. As far as this game goes, you get to engage in various chaotic fights in which they are really flashy, as well as what I love about Stellar Blade is that much more than just a normal kind of repetitive hack-and-slash game is that you get to upgrade and enhance various weapons, and where there's also a whole bunch of skills that you can acquire throughout the game. I really love how the developers put their heart and mind to present the skills, in which the skills are not only divided into various categories, but each category has its own sphere where there are a whole bunch of different skills that you can acquire and whatnot. And on top of this, I also love how Stellar Blade gives really clear instructions as to how to play the game and whatnot. Love how the tutorials are really clear. But yeah, if all that sounds interesting to you, definitely check out Stellar Blade on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Split Fiction, and it is a two-player co-op adventure game which is developed by Hazelight Studios. Yes, the studio which produced the iconic co-op game It Takes Two. Like It Takes Two, Split Fiction is a co-op game in which you can choose to either play it online with your buddy or play it, locally in co-op mode. What's really cool about Split Fiction is that there are tons of unexpected moments in which 1 second you could be taming dragons and the next second you could be fighting ninjas in style, as well as also be running away from different trolls, dodging cars. The possibilities are just so freaking endless. In this game, you and your friend, basically you two, will be assuming the roles as different writers, and unfortunately you and your friend are basically trapped in your story after being hooked to a machine which is stealing your ideas. Yes, your ideas, using your talents, stealing them and claiming it as their own. Yeah, very, very sad, very, very unfortunate. So you and your friend must work together and do all it takes to basically break free. And also by doing so, you guys also have to cooperatively overcome the various challenges together, as well as learn to master various abilities. So yeah, if you're looking for a story-rich game which you can enjoy with your significant other or a buddy of yours, definitely check out Split Fiction on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Nier Automata. Nier Automata has a blend of hack and slash elements, shoot 'em up elements, as well as a bit of RPG elements. As far as the shoot 'em up goes, there are times when you get to glide and shoot at various enemies while dodging obstacles that come at you along the way, as well as other times when you are navigating the world, you get to fight different enemies with melee style weapons, as well as shoot them down with some gun weapons. Now, as far as RPG elements goes, there's also a level up system where you can also customize various gears that you obtain, as well as make use of magic. So yeah, if all that sounds interesting to you, definitely check out Nier Automata on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart is a 3D platformer shooter adventure game where you get to fight hordes of enemies with a weapon wheel, where you have access to a whole bunch of different guns, different type of ammo and whatnot, as well as you also get to go around the different worlds to collect those various bots, and you get to also explore in this cartoon-like world where there's also two different types of dimensions. What I really love about Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart is also how there are amazing bosses that are really interesting to engage and fight with, as well as there are also puzzles where you get to solve that keeps your brain working to try to figure out how to progress in the game, as well as also these different side quests that are also very quirky and fun. Now, for me, I really love Ratchet & Clank. I was somebody who grew up with the franchise, and although I love the older Ratchet & Clank games better, but I believe that Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart is still a great game to enjoy and dive into the world of imagination. So yeah, if you really love Ratchet & Clank games, as well as you also love these games where there is a blending of, third-person shooter, as well as platforming and adventure and action and whatnot, if you love these games that have a mixture that it just blends in very well with these separate genres, definitely check out Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Alan Wake. In this game, you get to play as, you know it, Alan Wake, a famous horror author who goes on a vacation with his wife to the Pacific Northwest. Now, little did he know that right when him and his wife settled in their vacation cabin out in nature, his wife mysteriously disappears, and the events from the story he supposedly wrote but forgotten unfortunately came back to life, causing massive destruction and corrupting those around him. So you, as Alan Wake, you must go on this journey to put an end to the horror as well as save your wife. What I love about Alan Wake is that there are plenty of unexpected ambushes as you journey out, as well as there are also those intense fights where you will have to utilize your flashlights, lanterns, and anything that has light to stun the enemies before shooting them down. So yeah, it is a game in which it is just really fun, really cool, as well as also at times it could be a bit nerve-wracking, especially when the enemies come at you unexpectedly and where you run out of resources. So it is something in which you will also have to really pay attention to stock up on your resources. Make sure that you have enough resources in order to continue on with the adventure. It is really, really important. As well as while progressing in the story, there will be also some environmental hazards that will come at your way, such as, barrels or objects just flying towards you that can deal damage to you if you are not careful. So that's something that you also need to be aware and avoid, as well as there are also these unexpected things that happen that could also turn against you and that become your enemy as well. So that is something to also keep in mind as well. It is a game that is just really thrilling, really exciting, and also a game full of unexpected things that can happen. So yeah, if you really love action thriller games where it is also has the elements of survival and horror elements to it, then definitely check out Alan Wake on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 blends turn-based action and real-time action together, and where in this game you manage a group of friends, aka party members, in which the party members, when you equip them, they take turns in fighting, and where you have to select a specific skill in order to attack the enemy, and where each character has unique skill trees in which there are unique gameplay mechanics that you can unlock as you level up, and where you can equip them as the skills to attack the different enemies, as well as each character also has unique weapons in which they can be equipped and whatnot. Now, as far as during combat, like I said about how you select a specific skill to attack the different enemies, the thing about that is when you select a skill, you will automatically get into real-time action mode, in which there will be a button prompt on the screen and where you must execute the move, aka press the button at a specific timing, and the more accurate you are with timing your button input press, the more damage you will deal with the enemy. It is a really fun game in which I find myself really addicted with the combat and whatnot, and there's also a beautiful world where there are various places to explore in which I can really sink my teeth in. And most importantly, as I go about adventuring in Clair Obscur Expedition 33, it makes me feel like I am part of the team of friends that are going out there and making a difference. I'm not going to give you any spoilers, don't worry, but basically it just makes me feel as if I'm in there with them. It's just really, really immersive and engaging. So number 30 is Valheim. Valheim is a beautiful open world survival RPG game where you get to build, fight, conquer different enemies, and it is set in a Viking vibed island where you also get to gather different resources such as, farming, such as hunting, such as going mining, to do all it takes to get the proper resources in order to build your land. What I love about Valheim is that, you can take your time to build your land while at the same time it also blends in where you get to fight those different enemies and also be able to marvel at this beautiful fantasy world. I mean, this is just something that is just really nice, and if you have a really massive brain and where you are very good at imagining things, you have a big sense of imagination, Valheim is just perfect, because a lot of people that play Valheim, they just get addicted in building their land, and where they can easily spend 100, 1,000, or hell, even 10,000 hours to play Valheim in order to enjoy and just get submerged in the Viking world. So yeah, if you love these type of building games as well as you love these type of open world games where you get to do things in a very non-linear format and where it is very timeless and your possibilities are endless, definitely check out Valheim on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Deep Rock Galactic. Deep Rock Galactic is a game in which you and up to 3 other friends get to play in first-person shooter fashion as dwarves living on this procedurally generated cave. What I really love about Deep Rock Galactic is that you get to work together as you go about, whether it is digging, whether it is exploring, whether it is fighting merciless hordes of enemies, as well as whether it is gathering resources. It is just a really fun co-op experience where you get to just embark on this adventure while exploring those different areas that just feels like space, some place where you normally will not be able to explore in real life. It's just really fun, really chaotic, as well as it just brings about teamwork, brings about the excitement. And what I really love about Deep Rock Galactic as well is that due to its very non-linear gameplay is that you can easily pick up and drop whenever. So that is also something that's really cool for people like me who from time to time enjoy co-op games but primarily love to play single player games. Deep Rock Galactic is just a perfect game to play. So yeah, if all this sounds really interesting to you, definitely check out Deep Rock Galactic on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Hades. Hades is a roguelike dungeon crawler game where you play as Zagreus, who is the son of, you know it, Hades. Since Hades is a very unforgiving father and Zagreus is tired of his father, he decides that he wants to escape the underworld. So you as Zagreus, you have to do all it takes to escape the underworld in order to get to the mortal world in order to reside with your mother. What I really love about Hades is the hack and slash element. I love just going in there and fighting various hordes of enemies, as well as what I really love about Hades is also the different interesting boss fights that you got to do in order to progress in the underworld. So that is something that is also very interesting and very engaging, as well as really love the soundtrack of Hades. The music just brings about the vibe of the atmosphere of the game and what's going on in the game. So yeah, if you really love a beautiful indie roguelike dungeon crawler game, definitely check out Hades on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Pepper Grinder. In this game, you get to play as an adventurous girl named, you know it, Pepper, who gets shipwrecked and robbed of her treasures. Yeah, very, very unfortunate, very, very tragic. So you as Pepper must do all it takes to restore your treasures back to you. In this side-scrolling platformer, you get to utilize, you know it, a grinder where you get to grind and drill holes to progress in the game, as well as kill enemies along the way, engage in interesting boss fights. The possibilities are just freaking endless. There are plenty of chaoticness where at times you could be grinding through water, platforming on trucks, driving on freeways, digging underground to retrieve new paths with new secrets. There's just so much chaoticness in this game, and it is just so colorful and so beautiful and so cartoon-like. There are also various puzzles to solve in Pepper Grinder, in which I also love as well. So yeah, if you are really into fast-paced platformers in which you are on your feet at all times, definitely check out Pepper Grinder on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Celeste. In this game, you play as Madeline, who has insecurities and where she needs to find security and find healing. And in order to do that, she decides to go on this journey to hike to the peak of Celeste Mountain in order to heal herself. And little did she know, as she hike up Celeste Mountain, as you accompany her, you will get to meet interesting NPCs where they will teach her about life, whether it is for the good or for the bad. And whereas you get to accompany her, you also get to witness her experiencing breakthrough, where she gets to break from her cage of her negative inner self. It is a very emotional game where you get to platform up the mountain and where you also get to learn more about Celeste and just cheer her on in her journey for self-discovery. But also, what I love about Celeste is that there are also various secret areas in the game where you get those secret items. So yeah, if you want a game that is really beautiful, as well as it has a beautiful soundtrack, and where it could be challenging at times, but also where the characters may potentially motivate you in order to become a better person. Definitely check out Celeste on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Bramble the Mountain King. In Bramble the Mountain King, you play as Ollie, who discovers that his sister is missing at night due to his sister wandering out into the woods and not coming back. So you, as Ollie, being a great brother, you decide to embark on this journey to hopefully find your sister and at the same time bring her safely back home. Now, as you journey out into the woods by yourself, you manage to find your sister. However, as you and your sister is on the way back home, your sister gets captured once again by a ferocious, mysterious creature, and so you as Ollie cannot go home just yet, but have to go find your sister and save her from the creature before it is too late. What I really love about Bramble is how there is an awesome narrator. As you progress in the game, there are times where the narrator will just say a interesting dialogue where it sounds as if it is somebody like your mom who is reading a bedtime story to you who is a little kid. It just kind of has this type of aesthetics, and I just feel like that is just really artistic, and where it is just something that is just often overlooked and also really nice. As well as what I really love about Bramble is how, as you go about where you have to go into those different houses to solve these different puzzles, there are also interesting booklets, these optional interesting booklets that you can read where you learn about those different enemies in the game, their backstory, and that is something that I also feel like it brings about this extra spice, because it teaches me that potentially hurt people, that even though there were those enemies that are trying to harm Ollie, but at the same time I can sympathize with them, their behavior of why they want to hurt Ollie, because they themselves have been hurt in the past. But another thing that I have to really warn you about Bramble is that when you start out the game, it may seem as just a fun, jolly adventure game, but as you go farther into the game, I'm not going to give you any spoilers, but I have to warn you is that it starts getting very dark and very horrific. So that is something to really note for if you are somebody who is very sensitive to horror games. Then Bramble may not be for you. You might get nightmares, just as a heads up, because it could be pretty scary later on in the game. In the beginning not so much, but later on it will be more scary, so you might have to avoid that. But if you are somebody who doesn't mind horror games like I do, definitely check out Bramble the Mountain King, because there is so much to the game and where it speaks to me in many different ways. Another thing that I have to also warn you is that Bramble could be frustrating, because in Bramble the Mountain King, there is no health bar. If you get hit by an enemy, you're dead. If you land in some spikes, you're dead. There is no grace as far as being hit, so that is something to really also keep in mind, that it is not easy. But anyways, if those things don't bother you, if you really love these type of games where there is a very big sense of emotion tied behind it, as well as where a game that it can speak to you in many different ways, as well as if you love these type of games where there's a beautiful soundtrack and a beautiful presentation, definitely check out Bramble the Mountain King on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Judgment. In this game, you get to play as Takayuki Yagami, a former lawyer and current detective who is trying to solve the case of a series of murder incidences in Kamurocho, a fictional Tokyo district. There are really cool, interesting, engaging plot twists, various side stories which keep me on my toes, as well as there are really interesting and fun encounters with gangs that I can beat up while roaming around, similar to the various Yakuza games. What's unique about Judgment, however, is the fact about mortal wounds. The thing about mortal wounds, they occur when you get hit by those various enemies where they do various damages to Yagami, your character, and where if you get those mortal wounds, it will permanently decrease your maximum health, in which in order for you to recover your fullest potential of maximum health, you must do two different options. One, either find treatment from an underground doctor, or or 2 biomedical kits to use in order to restore your maximum health. So that is a gameplay element that I really like, that in which it is really unique. It just brings about this kind of strategy. It brings about this kind of thing in which you gotta be careful about not getting damaged by those tough enemies. It is something that's just really, really important to note. So yeah, if you are a person like me who loves a really engaging thriller story, as well as you love games where the story, the characters and all that speak to you in many different ways, as well as you really love these games where there are a unique type of gameplay style where there is extra spice to it, definitely check out Judgment on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Lost Judgment. Lost Judgment, in this game you play as Takayuki Yagami, an ex-lawyer who is now a detective and who has to investigate a bully/suicide case that is primarily based in a high school. Now, what I love about Lost Judgment is that there are plenty of unexpected plot twists, as well as a very thrilling adventure that you get to embark in. I also love where you get to go around those Japanese streets while beating up various thugs, as well as what I also love is that there are plenty of side things to do, most notably the side quests as well as school stories. In Lost Judgment, when you embark on those different side quests, there are many, not all the side quests, but many of the side quests, they will not open up unless you access an app on your phone where you navigate and track down something before the side quest is being able to access. So that is something that I find is really cool because it really shows the life of how a detective ought to operate. A detective a lot of times has to find different cues in order to solve different mysteries. Now, the side quests, they also have different stories that are really, really touching. It just brings a lot of different valuable lessons that really teach me in different ways and speaks to me in different ways. As well as I also love going in with the school stories because Yagami, in case you don't know, he is somebody that is about 40 years old, and as those different high school kids, it may be hard for him to relate to the high school kids because people in the Gen X generation and the Gen Zs, they are much different as far as technology goes, as far as lifestyle goes. So what I really love about this game with Yagami, as far as the school story goes, is that he really is submerging his life to understand the people that are younger, the younger people, also teaching him different ways of living, and him also motivating the kids to also become a better person, to mature better in life, because he has obviously been living life much longer than them. So that is something that I also find really precious in the school stories, is that I'm somebody who may be in their early 30s, but at the same time I can learn from people that are much younger, but I also can be somebody who learn from people that are much older. There are always these type of value that various generations bring. One thing I don't like about Lost Judgment is that they took away some features from the previous game Judgment. I mean, one notable thing that I loved about Judgment was where there is this health bar where if Yagami gets wounded to a certain point, it will deplete his maximum health and he needs to go find a cure by an underground doctor, or just heal it by finding specific aid kits and stuff. I won't give you any spoilers. All I'm gonna say is that is something that I really loved in the first game, and I am just really disappointed that it didn't include that in the second game. But anyways, if you are somebody who loves those Yakuza games and you love going around fighting up these different thugs, you like these type of action type of games, as well as you love games that speak to you in many different ways, definitely check out Lost Judgment on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Rise, Son of Rome. In this game, you play as Marius Titus, who is a person who just got trained to become a Roman soldier, and where in between him finishing his training and him getting deployed to Alexandria, he pays his family a visit, but unfortunately in the process of the visit, barbarians invade the streets and unfortunately kills his family, his mom, his dad, as well as unfortunately his sister. So you as Marius decides to go on this mission to go fight to avenge your family. What I really love about Rise Son of Rome is how there are a lot of enemies to fight in hack and slash fashion where you just go in and chaotically engage in the enemy fights and whatnot. What I also love about this game is how brutal the game is, where you get to engage in execution sequences as well as you get to use various weapons, either the weapon's own as well as the weapons in the environment from time to time to engage in different fights to your advantage. There's just something about this game in which as I go about as Marius Titus fighting off those different enemies, it feels not repetitive unlike some hack and slash games. In this game, as I go about fighting, it really feels like as if I am just going in there because of how much I hate those enemies killing my family. It's just something that I feel just really special compared to other hack and slash games where some of them just feels very repetitive, but this one just feels very emotional in my opinion. So yeah. And then on top of Rise Son of Rome, the campaign, there's also gladiator mode where you can play either by yourself or with one friend, where you get to fight off various waves of enemies and whatnot. And that is something that I feel, even though that is not the major seller point for Rise Son of Rome, the major seller point for Rise Son of Rome is obviously the campaign in my opinion, but I am really glad that they included gladiator mode, because sometimes I might want to play some games with some friends where I can easily pick up and drop, and this I believe is one of those things that I can play with a friend cooperatively and where I can easily pick it up and drop whenever. But anyways, if you are somebody who loves hack and slash games and you also love these games where there is an emotional story to it and where you really feel for the character, definitely check out Rise Son of Rome on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Spider-Man Miles Morales. In this game you get to play as, you know it, Miles Morales, in which when you play as Miles you gotta help him balance his personal life while also protecting New York City, the residents, from a deadly virus. Now the thing about, Spider-Man Miles Morales is that in this game we see in the beginning where Peter, which is the other Spider-Man, he's gonna be gone on a trip for a few weeks, so Miles basically has to cover for him. He has to be the person who guards the fort and basically protects the residents. Peter is gone to take care of other business and Miles has to take over. Now the thing about Miles Morales, I know a lot of people, they don't like Miles Morales that much due to it being a much shorter game, but the thing is that to be honest, for me, I resonate with Miles Morales much more than, Spider-Man 2018. Now, Spider-Man 2, I would have put it on this list this far down, but at the same time, Spider-Man 2, in my opinion, it doesn't really touch me as greatly as, Spider-Man Miles Morales, so I wouldn't put Spider-Man 2 all the way down, also let alone that Spider-Man 2 doesn't really run as well on the Steam Deck, so that's also another factor. But anyway, Spider-Man Miles Morales, what I actually really love about Spider-Man Miles Morales is that I really love how you get to explore New York City, where you stop those different crimes, as well as I really love those different attacks, the attack moves like the Venom attack, which is just really cool and really fun, and where you just blast at those different enemies and whatnot. I love that inclusion of it, as well as I really love, as far as the game goes about the side activities, is having the ability to clear out those different Roxxon labs and hideouts, which is basically story related. I won't give you any spoilers, don't worry, and where you get to fight those different waves of enemies when participating in those different activities. As well as what I really love about Miles Morales is that compared to Spider-Man 2018, I feel like they really improved on the various challenges. Now, Spider-Man Miles Morales, even though there are, stealth challenges, combat challenges, traversal challenges, what's cool about these challenges is that these challenges work as a way for Peter being a mentor and teaching Miles the ropes on how to literally survive and protect the people in New York City. And the thing about those different challenges, what's really cool about it is that they have a lot of spice to it. For example, you could have one combat challenge in which you have to kill the enemies by launching them in the air, and while another challenge could also be a combat challenge where you basically have to kill the different enemies without taking damage. That's what I kind of remember, is that even though there are various challenges challenges that may be labeled as the same kind of category, like combat, stealth, or traversal, but there are also those objectives in those different challenges that brings about the spice to the different challenges. It is not straightforward like Spider-Man 2018, where, a stealth challenge is just where you take out those different enemies stealthily, and where a combat challenge, you're just basically racing into time to kill those different enemies at a specific time. No, Spider-Man Miles Morales, the thing about those challenges is that there is extra spice to it. There are specific things you have to do even in those specific category of challenges. So that is something in which I really love about Spider-Man Miles Morales much more than Spider-Man 2018, as well as I really love about Spider-Man Miles Morales the story of it. I love how Miles is just growing up and basically just learning about what it means to cherish his family life, to care about the things that matter to him the most. And there's also these struggles in Miles' complicated life in which I just feel really touched as well. So yeah, if you are somebody who doesn't mind shorter games and you love these type of open world games where there are tons of things to do, but at the same time you also love it to be a short and sweet story that is touching as well, definitely check out Spider-Man Miles Morales on the Steam Deck. So number 20 is Just Cause 3. Just Cause 3 is a third-person action-adventure game where you get to play as Rico Rodriguez, who returns to his homeland, and unfortunately his homeland is now under control in dictatorship. And so you, as Rico, you must go on this mission to overthrow the dictator. It is a really fun, chaotic game where there are amazing exploring mechanics such as the tethering mechanics, as well as utilizing the variety of weapons such as rifles, missile launchers, aircrafts, ships, cars, and many more. It's a really fun, chaotic, action-packed adventure where the possibilities are just endless. So yeah, if you really love these type of action-packed games where there is a beautiful world to explore and where you can blow up stuff, you can also fight in various different ways that are just so remarkable, definitely check out Just Cause 3 on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Sleeping Dogs Definitive Edition. In this game, you get to play as Wei Shen, who is an undercover cop who is on the mission to infiltrate the strongest triad in Hong Kong. What I love about Sleeping Dogs Definitive Edition is that there are plenty of things to do. You can just drive around town, engage on various missions, whether it is the triad missions, whether it is the cop missions, whether it is just regular civilian side missions. There's just so many different variety of missions that you can do throughout the streets of Hong Kong. And what I also really love about Sleeping Dogs is that how, even though it has the vibes and aesthetics, in my opinion, kind of like GTA games, that's just my personal opinion, but what I really love about Sleeping Dogs is that it is more lenient towards melee combat instead of firearms combat, which to me is just really cool. Another thing that I also love about Sleeping Dogs is that it also has this Asian vibe. As somebody who is Asian, I kind of like that because it kind of just relates to me, even though I am not an undercover cop. But it's just cool to see games where when there are those dialogues where people speak in Chinese. It's just really cool to see that from time to time. But don't worry, even if you don't know how to understand Chinese, like if you don't know the language, you can still be able to play it, because as far as the game goes, the main story as well as the side quests and all that, most of it still has English in it. And whenever the characters speak in Chinese, there always will be English subtitles down there. So don't need to worry, even though some of the dialogue is in Chinese, but you will still be able to understand what's going on in the Sleeping Dogs Definitive Edition. But anyways, if you really love, cop games, you love open world action games where there's a lot of things to do and where you can just go around and treat the city as if it is your city, definitely check out Sleeping Dogs Definitive Edition on the Steam Deck. Now, number 18 is the Saboteur. The Saboteur in this game, you play as Sean Delvin, who moved to France as a way to move on from his life as an outlaw. Since France at the time of the game, the game takes place in World War II, it is currently occupied by German Nazis. So you, as Sean, you decide to find purpose by fighting for France and joining the French resistance in order to fight and kick the Nazis back and make France become free. What I really really love about the Saboteur is that it perfectly blends driving, shooting, melee combat, exploration, mashing that all together. I mean, you could be just driving in the countryside for 1 minute, and then a few minutes later, you are suddenly in the city engaging in massive shootouts. Man, it's just something that just brings about all these varieties, all these things going on, and all this craziness and chaoticness, all these different things just all blending in together. But what I really want to praise the Saboteur is that I love how there is this amazing thing about their illustrations. For areas that are occupied by the Germans, it would be black and white, which signifies, doom and gloom in France. When you continue and progress in the game, you will liberate various areas. Those liberated areas will have their color aesthetics restored, basically just showing that that part is becoming peaceful and the civilians living in that area of France will be safe and secure. It's just really cool to see how there is just this type of illustration that brings about this vibe of what's going on in the game. But anyways, if you really love historical fiction type of games where there's a whole bunch of action in it, definitely check out Saboteur on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. In this game, you play as Senua, who is dealing with psychosis and where she must journey to Helheim in order to save the soul of her deceased soulmate from the goddess. What I really love about this game is not only is the Norse mythology and all that kind of lore and whatnot, but also what I really love about Hellblade 1 is that it takes place in this dark fantasy world and where it just perfectly blends the gameplay concepts of puzzles, of the disability awareness, aka psychosis, as well as melee combat, and it just makes me really feel the thing about what's going on with Senua, somebody who is dealing with psychosis. People who have this type of disability, it doesn't stop them from achieving what they need to achieve. It's just something that is just so remarkable. So yeah, if you really love dark fantasy emotional games where there's a deep story as well as there is a strong vibe, strong sense of disability awareness, definitely check out Hellblade 1 on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Red Dead Redemption 2. Red Dead Redemption 2 is an action-adventure game set in the fictional Wild West 1899, in a sense that the aesthetics, they bring about this picture of what the Wild West of America is like, but at the same time, the lands, the names, and whatnot, they are fictional. As far as combat side of things, you can engage in melee combat, firearms combat, using bow and arrow, as well as using dual-wield weapons, and many more. As well as what I really love is that there are also a whole bunch of different side activities, such as dueling, bounty hunting, just to name a few. So yeah, if you really love action games where there is an interesting story as well as where there are just a lot of things to do, definitely check out Red Dead Redemption 2 on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Horizon Zero Dawn. In this game, you play as Aloy, who's a young hunter who is living in a world dominated by machines and is on a mission to unveil her past. What I love about Horizon Zero Dawn is that how there is a beautiful world to explore, as well as what I love about it is that you get to fight those different machines, whether it is shooting arrows or just going straight in bare bones with melee combat. As well as what I love about Horizon Zero Dawn is that there are a whole bunch of different side quests that I get to do where I get to help those around me as Aloy, as well as what I also love is engaging in those different trials, which is basically challenges in other types of games. And what I really love specifically about the trials is that there are a variety of different types of trials where I believe that Guerrilla Games, they did a very good job in it. There is just a whole bunch of creativity that goes behind the different trials. For instance, there is one specific trial that I remember where you must use the environment to your advantage in order to kill the different machines, to kill a certain amount of machines at a specific time limit, and I find that really interesting. So yeah, if you really love these type of action games where there is a beautiful story as well as a beautiful world to explore and where there are lots to do as well as just going about hunting and exploring and whatnot, definitely check out Horizon Zero Dawn on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Halo Master Chief Collection. Halo Master Chief Collection is 6 for the price of 1, baby, where it includes 6 classic Halo games. Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary, Halo Reach, Halo 2 Anniversary, Halo 3, Halo 3 ODST, as well as Halo 4. What I really love about Halo Master Chief Collection is that it is just really iconic. It just brings back the vibes of the classic games that I enjoy back in the day. Those really fun first-person shooter games that just brings about all these different types of memories. Halo Master Chief Collection, in my opinion, they are also the best games in the Halo franchise. They just basically identify what the Halo games ought to be. So the major thing is that if you are somebody who's a long-time Halo fan, you must check out Halo Master Chief Collection. If you are somebody who just wants to kind of hop into the Halo franchise, you must check out the Halo Master Chief Collection. It is just something in which it is just so mind-blowing, so amazing, and where it's really great to be able to play on the Steam Deck and play on the go whenever possible. Now up next is Ori and the Blind Forest. Ori and the Blind Forest is a Metroidvania platformer game where you get to play as Ori, a spirit guardian who is on this mission to revive a withered forest by restoring the 3 elements of light. What I really love about Ori and the Blind Forest is the beautiful world to platform, as well as there are also those different secret areas that you can discover. Also on top of that, there is an emotional story that brings tears to my eyes, as well as a beautiful soundtrack to bring all that awesomeness together. It's just really cool, really fun, and the music, I will say this, is that very few games, in my opinion, have better music than Ori and the Blind Forest. They are those type of music in which I will find myself to be playing them regularly, even when I'm not playing the game or when I'm with other friends. Even friends where they are not in a good mood, they will ask me at times, can we play some music from Ori, Joe? The soundtrack is just really top notch. It not only brings the mood and vibe of the game together, but it also is just really relaxing that you will potentially want to play them not only when playing the game, but also outside, as the music can be quite addicting as well. But anyways, if you love these type of beautiful platforming games where there is just an emotional story, as well as you love these type of games where it is also not that challenging as well, because I understand that for some people, you know, they will get turned off by platformer games because some platforming games are just really challenging. But Ori and the Blind Forest, I feel like it is a good start to get into even the platforming genre. There are parts where it is just a bit tricky, but at the same time, it is also not overwhelmingly hard. So yeah, if you really also love these type of platformers that is also not that hard, but at the same time also fun and emotional as well, definitely check out Ori and the Blind Forest on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Ori and the Will of the Wisps is a sequel to Ori and the Blind Forest. What I love more about Ori and the Will of the Wisps is that there are side quests that you get to engage, because believe it or not, Ori and the Blind Forest, there is no side quests. Yes, there is exploration and there is story progression, but there is no side quests to do in the game. The only reason to go back to a certain part in Ori and the Blind Forest is to just discover certain areas in which you cannot access before, because at the time that you encounter those different areas, you don't have the skills to get into those areas. So the only reason to go back to certain areas in Ori and the Blind Forest is to access certain parts of the map which you could not access before. However, in Ori and the Will of the Wisps, there's another incentive to go back to certain areas, and that is to engage in those different side quests. I believe those side quests, they bring about those different values in the game. As well as what I really love about how there's those different side quests is because it just feels that Ori gets to engage more with the community in the forest. It just makes me feel as if Ori is being more intentional with the residences in the environment. It's just one of those type of little things that just really matter a lot more in my opinion. As well as what I really love about Ori and the Will of the Wisps compared to Ori Ori and the Blind Forest is that Ori and the Will of the Wisps, it is also heavily reliant on auto-saving. When you progress in the game, there will be that icon at certain points where it shows that the game is saving, and that is something that I find really valuable as well, because I'm somebody who is not that great at gaming. I do love games a lot, that's why I make this channel, but at the end of the day, I have to admit that I'm not the best at gaming, so having autosave features is just something that is really practical for me, because I don't want to be where if I pass a certain part of the game that's just really challenging and I forget to save, then I have to redo the challenging part of the game again. I mean, that was one of the things that I had struggled with Ori and the Blind Forest. There are certain challenging parts of the game where I passed and I forgot to save, and where I had to redo the challenging part. So I'm really glad that Ori and the Will of the Wisps, there is also this part of auto-saving where, you know, if I mess up and I forget to save, then sometimes there could be a chance where it auto-saves and I don't have to redo certain parts. But anyways, another thing that I really love about Ori and the Will of the Wisps is the introduction to spirit trials, where you get to race against a spirit, and the goal is to beat it and to receive spirit light, which is the currency for you to buy different important necessities in the game. As well as what I really love is the inclusion of combat shrines, which you get to fight waves of enemies, and where you also receive those different rewards that will help you along your journey to progress in the game. Even though I praise Ori and the Will of the Wisps, and I love Ori and the Will of the Wisps so much better than Ori and the Blind Forest, but I have to warn you, what I really don't like about Ori and the Will of the Wisps is that the story, in my opinion, is not as inspirational as Ori and the Blind Forest, just as a heads up. Aside from that, Ori and the Will of the Wisps is just better in every other way, so honestly, Ori and the Will of the Wisps is just a much better, much polished game, in my opinion. But anyways, if you really love these type of Metroidvania platformer games where there is a beautiful world to explore, as well as an amazing soundtrack, and where there is a lot of things to do and whatnot, and also interesting boss fights, definitely check out Ori and the Will of the Wisps on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Ghost of Tsushima. This game is a beautiful open world action adventure game where you get to play as Jin Sakai, a samurai, where him and his uncle Lord Shimura starts out, you know, fighting off those different Mongols on the beach. However, they are severely defeated, where Jin miraculously is saved and Lord Shimura is captured by the Kotu Khan, which is the leader of the Mongols, and held hostage. Now you as Jin, since you love your uncle Lord Shimura, and where Lord Shimura is the only family member that is still alive, you decide to go on this mission to save your uncle. However, little did you know that as you go on this mission, it becomes much more than saving your uncle. As you go about this mission to save your uncle, along with those people around you who support and believe in you, you end up doing much more than saving your uncle, but also learn yourself more. Learn that it's really important to save people instead of being strict and religious in the samurai code of honor. It's just a very emotional story about friendship and doing all it takes to save those around you, to care for those around you, to value life to its fullest. Now, what I really love about Ghost of Tsushima is the side activities that you get to do. The side quest called Tales of Tsushima, even though it is optional, but I highly recommend playing all those Tales of Tsushima, experiencing them to the fullest, because you get to understand those different stories as you bond with those different people around you that mean a lot to you. As well as what I also love is how there is a deep lore in those mystic tales and whatnot. And also what I really enjoy is, on top of that, there are also a lot of things to do in the open world aspect of Ghost of Tsushima, whether it is engaging in those bamboo strikes, as as well as going into those different hot springs and just reflecting on life. It just brings about those different immersion in this beautiful world of Tsushima Island. As well as what I really love about Iki Island, which is the DLC that is included in Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut, is that it also further brings about Jin's healings from his past wounds. That is also something that's just really emotional. And by the way, I have an in-depth review on Ghost of Tsushima, sharing my deep thoughts, going all into the game about all you need to know about the game, whether or not the game is for you or not. So I have that. Feel free to check it out if you are interested in Ghost of Tsushima. We'll much appreciate that. But anyways, if you really love games where there is a lot of things to do in the game and where there's an emotional story that really teaches you a lot about life and speaks to you in many different ways, definitely check out Ghost of Tsushima on the Steam Deck. So number 10 is Yakuza 6, The Song of Life. In Yakuza 6, you play as Kazuma Kiryu, who just got out of prison and realizes that his daughter is in a coma due to a hit-and-run collision, leaving her baby son, aka Kiryu's grandson, alive and without the nurture of his mother. So you, as Kiryu, must take full responsibility by caring for your grandson like how a great father ought to treat his son, while discovering the dark secrets and truths tied to your daughter as well as your grandson. On top of that, you will also uncover the secrets of the Hiroshima Yakuza. There are plenty of various side quests that are also impactful to me as well, in which they taught me so much about life. What I love about this game is you get to beat up those various hordes of gangs or low-lifers along the streets of Japan, and what I really love in the process of beating them up is the bring of those different dialogues where the gang members mock the MC, in which I find quite funny at times. Now, as you progress, what I also love about the gameplay style is that you get to upgrade your skills, which makes you stronger and being able to take down much tougher enemies as well. So yeah, if you love these games where there's a whole bunch of action to it, as well as you love these Yakuza games where there is this gang life in Japan, as well as you also love these games that have a touching and beautiful story to it, definitely check out Yakuza 6, The Song of Life on your Steam Deck. Now, number 9 is I Am Setsuna. I Am Setsuna is a top-down, turn-based RPG-style game in which you get to play as Ender, the guardian of Setsuna, who is a woman chosen as the sacrifice in hopes to appease the monsters to prevent them from attacking your village. Throughout the game, you'll meet very interesting characters which will become your party member and assist you along the way, as well as you get to meet those different NPCs who gives out those various dialogues which brings about life in the civilization as it currently stands, as well as you get to engage in various monster fights with various strengths and weaknesses, and buy and upgrade your gear, as well as adding accessories to it to buff your party members, like how those RPG games work. What I really love about I'm Setsuna, on top of these attributes, is you get to also engage in exclusive side quests which are pertained to particular party members. And what I also really feel I'm Setsuna shines is the illustration of the world, from the snowy landscape to the soundtracks to the way the characters bond on their journey. It just brings about a beautiful story in which there are so many touching moments in which they help me reflect on my life and become a better person. So yeah, if you really enjoy those turn-based RPG style games and where there are also an amazing cast of characters in which there are an amazing story in which they teach you so much about life and motivate and captivate you, definitely check out I'm Setsuna on the Steam Deck. Number 8, God of War 2018. God of War 2018 is a fun, action-packed adventure game with an amazing story where you play as Kratos, the iconic God of War franchise figure, whose wife Faye passes away, leaving just him and his son Atreus as part of the family. Now, to give one last honor to his wife Faye, Kratos and Atreus goes about on a journey to the highest point of the 9 realms based on Norse mythology to spread the ashes of Faye. Throughout the journey, there are plenty of moments where Kratos taught Atreus how to grow and mature into a man both physically and mentally, such as helping him learn how to hunt as well as learn to control his anger, and those moments are extremely impactful. As for the action side of things, there are plenty of enemies to fight using various weapons such as the Leviathan Axe and later the Blades of Chaos, each having their own strengths and weaknesses. It is just so immersive and so engaging and so fun as well as so touching. But what I also love about God of War 2018 is that it also incorporates those RPG elements where you get to tinker your gear as well as learn new skills in fighting. So yeah, if you really love these action-packed games with an impactful story and a beautiful world where you get immersed in, definitely check out God of War 2018 on your Steam deck. Now, number 7, Elden Ring. Elden Ring is a masterpiece, an RPG challenging game with tough enemies, tough bosses, as well as a beautiful world to roam around. What's cool about Elden Ring is that there are a whooping 10 different classes to choose from, which brings about a diverse variety of how you will experience and feel in Elden Ring. So the gameplay possibilities are just pretty much endless, and not to mention there is also a vast open world environment that is also engaging, intriguing, and interesting to explore as well. On top of this, what I also love about Elden Ring is that there are various multiplayer modes. You can choose to do 3-player co-op in which you and 2 other friends just go about this open world to tackle the environment and whatnot, as well as you also get to do those PvP duels. So yeah, if you really love open world games which has tough enemies, tough bosses, as well as there is a amazing world to explore and where the possibilities are endless, definitely check out Elden Ring on your Steam deck. Now, number 6, Cyberpunk 2077. This game is a first-person action RPG game set in the fictional futuristic city called Night City, where there are tons of danger. What I love about Cyberpunk 2077 is the beautiful world that you get to explore, which is extremely immersive. It just feels as if I'm currently out and about, whether it is on a mission out of civilization or doing business in a city and roaming around. As well as, I really love how there is a diverse amount of weapons, skills, and abilities, and on top of that, a diverse of things to do in Cyberpunk 2077. You can hack, you can engage in dialogue options, as well as do many more. So yeah, if you love these action games that are flashy and have interesting characters to engage with, as well as a beautiful landscape and having so much to do, definitely check out Cyberpunk 2077 on your Steam deck. Now, number 5, Persona 4 Golden. Persona 4 Golden is a turn-based RPG game about a high school protagonist who moves into a countryside town of a fictional Japanese city called Inaba, where he meets new friends while solving the mysteries of various murder cases in town, with the privilege of both interacting with the real world as well as entering into the cognitive realm through a TV and fighting all the way to the end in the form of their personas, which resemble the name of the series, but also the avatars reflecting on each individual, and are activated only when entering the TV and fighting and exploring various dungeons. The key is to fight and level up the various personas of each character to grant more skills, in which you will become stronger and buffer and whatnot in order to tackle more enemies in the games, in the dungeons and stuff. What's cool is that Persona 4 Golden perfectly blends turn-based RPG games with high school life simulation games, as in between those various deadlines in which you have to go into the TV to enter those different dungeons to tackle the dangers and whatnot to save a shadow out of those different dungeons, is that in between those different deadlines, they get to form different bonds with others, as well as participate in various classes. As well as, what I love about Persona 4 Golden is they're prioritizing their story arcs in the different bonds that they form, because the thing is that when you form those different bonds, not only do they help in making you stronger and better prepared to face whatever danger lies ahead in those various dungeons and stuff, but also what's cool about those bonds is that there are also these unique story arcs in those different characters about the different things that they face those different challenges, and where you play as the protagonist and you bring hope to them, bring encouragement to them. So those kind of spawns, those story arcs, I believe that it is something that's definitely worth checking out. Definitely not skip it, and whenever you have the time, definitely spend time to bond and make those different friends, those connections and whatnot. It just brings so much spice into the story of Persona 4 Golden. So yeah, if you really love these type of turn-based RPG games where there is a rich story in which there are these different interesting characters, in which there is so much to do, and where you get to learn so much about those different stories, those things that captivate you and also teach you in how to become a better leader, definitely check out Persona 4 Golden on the Steam Deck. Now, number 4, Persona 5 Royal. In Persona 5 Royal, this is a turn-based RPG game. You get to play as a high school protagonist named Joker, who is unfortunately wrongfully accused of sexual misconduct and sent to Shujin Academy for an entire school year due to probation. At the school, he gets to meet new friends, and suddenly they all witness a mysterious app being planted in their phones, which give them access to the metaverse, aka the cognitive realm of corrupt adults, where the friends fight those different shadows in there and quote-unquote steal their treasures, which forces a change of heart in which the individual will confess his or her crimes in real life. It is a really fun turn-based RPG game with much exploration as well as a blend of high school simulation. Like Persona 4 Golden, there are these different deadlines where the party members must enter the dungeons and fight off these different shadows in fashion. In the meantime, in between those different deadlines, they get to form different bonds with others, as well as get to participate in class. Like Persona 4 Golden, you know, there's all these different bonds in which they are also captivating. The characters grow and develop, and it's just really cool to see how the protagonist is being a great leader, listening to the different team member struggles and also helping them cope with it, and also help them to become a better person, to grow and develop and become a better person, to empower these different individuals to become leaders in their own, to take leadership and be responsible in life. So yeah, that is something that I really love how Persona 5 Royal does. It depicts those different things really well. In fact, much better in my opinion. There are many moments in Persona 5 Royal in which they are really touching to me, in which they resonate in me so much better than Persona 4 Golden, even though I love Persona 4 Golden as well. So hence, Persona 5 Royal touches me so much more. It's much more personal, so that's why I put Persona 5 Royal further up in the list as number 4. But anyways, Persona 5 Royal, there is one thing that I have to warn you guys. I gotta warn you that Persona 5 Royal, you know, if you are playing Persona 5 Royal to get the full package, to get everything that Persona 5 Royal has to offer, you have to make sure to do your research on which bonds you have to prioritize, because the way Persona 5 Royal works is that there are certain bonds that are essential to move up in the story arc in order for you to get the extra semester in Persona 5 Royal, which is not present in the base game, the base Persona 5 game back in 2016. So yeah, just to give you a heads up, I know a lot of you are like me who don't like to look up guides because we feel like we want to figure out things on our own, sure. But for this game, it's really essential to know which bonds to prioritize so you will not miss out on certain important aspects of the game. But anyways, yeah, if you really love these turn-based RPG games where there is a beautiful cast of characters in which it can teach you so much about life as well as teach you to become a better leader, and where there are also these different dungeons that you get to fight in, as well as find those different secret areas to find those different secret treasures and whatnot. If you love all these different aspects of it with an amazing story, definitely check out Persona 5 Royal on the Steam Deck. Now, number 3, Shadow of Mordor. Shadow of Mordor is set between the events of Peter Jackson's The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings trilogy. In Shadow of Mordor, you play as Talion, a ranger and captain of Gondor, who along with his family is unfortunately captured by the Sauron Ulrics and sacrificed by the Black Hand to summon the wraith of the Elk Lord Celebrimbor. However, Celebrimbor suffers amnesia due to being a wraith and merges with Talion, which in turn resurrects Talion and tags along with Talion to go on the mission to seek vengeance against Sauron. Shadow of Mordor, in my opinion, is a very engaging open world game with tons of enemies to fight, places to explore, side quests that enhance the story, as well as a nice, unique nemesis system with a beautiful soundtrack, bringing Middle-earth Lord of the Rings vibes to it. What I love about the nemesis system is that you can track down those different Ulrichs, and where defeating the captains will weaken their goons, while being defeated by them will unfortunately level up the Ulrichs. So yeah, if you really love action games in which there are these immense worlds to explore, as well as there's also a unique nemesis system in which you will not see too much in any other type of games, in which there's a unique gameplay aspect to it, as well as there's a beautiful world for you to marvel about because you love Lord of the Rings, definitely check out Shadow of Mordor on the Steam Deck. Number 2. Shadow of War. Shadow of War is a direct sequel to Shadow of Mordor. In Shadow of War, we see Talion and Celebrimbor head to Mount Doom to create yet another ring of power that is fresh and clean with no corruption from Sauron whatsoever. However, things turn nasty once the ring was created and Celebrimbor gets captured by Shelob, where Shelob threatens Talion to give her the ring or else she would keep Celebrimbor hostage. Due to her claiming that she and Talion have mutual hate towards an enemy in Sauron, Talion reluctantly hands over the ring, and here's what Shelob has to say as she sees into the future before heading out on the mission. What I love about the gameplay in Shadow of War is that, in my opinion, it is much better, it is much refined than Shadow of Mordor. There are much more spices added to Shadow of War. There's a much bigger world to explore, roam, fight, and engage in those various side quests. There are also a much bigger variety of weapons that you can use in battle. However, if this is not enough, what I am most impressed with Monolith Studios is them buffing the Nemesis system. In Shadow of War, when an enemy is dominated, they become spies to eavesdrop on various war chiefs and bring the intel back to Talion. Also, they can either become friends to Talion or become foes depending on how you as Talion treat them afterwards. Like, if you protect or abandon them during the battle, it can really affect how they will treat Talion. If you abandon them in battle, they could somehow side with Sauron again, and therefore they will just betray Talion and become an enemy once more. So yeah, if you really love Shadow of Mordor and you think that you don't have enough of Shadow of Mordor, definitely check out Shadow of War. I mean, Shadow of War is just a much better and bigger brother to Shadow of Mordor. But even if you are somebody who never touched Shadow of Mordor, I feel like you could definitely step into Shadow of War and still have a great time. Like I said, it is a much bigger brother to Shadow of Mordor, where there's just so many more things to do, so many different enemies to fight, so many different worlds, so many different areas in the world to explore, and so many different weapons that you can use. If you think that Shadow of Mordor, where the possibilities of gameplay is endless, then you'll feel Shadow of War just brings it into a whole new different level. But anyways, yeah, if you really love these open world action games where there is much to do, definitely check out Shadow of War on the Steam Deck. Alright guys, my favorite game of all time on the Steam Deck, and is none other than Metaphor ReFantasio. Metaphor ReFantasio is a turn-based RPG game by Atlas, who is also the studio for Persona games. So if you really enjoy Persona, you will most likely also love Metaphor as well. What Metaphor does right, in my opinion, is borrowing a lot of what Persona did and adding some spin to it and matching it with an adult version with adult themes. Metaphor ReFantasio is about how a kingdom named Ucronia, which is in a mess because the king was being killed by an army officer named Luis, and a magic which is unique called a royal magic, hence the name due to it only previously known to the king, is being invoked. With the prince being a victim to the spell and in a coma but assumed dead by the people, and now the actual king dead, this leads to chaos in Ucronia. Now, in order to determine who will be the next king, obviously because the king is dead and the prince is now in a coma, and where everybody thinks that the prince is dead as well, they don't know who will be the next king. So they decide to issue a royal tournament which ensures the individual who manages to get the most followers, the most people to believe in him or her, if they get the most amount of followers before the due date of the crowning of a new king, they will succeed to be the successor to the throne. Now, you as the protagonist enter the royal tournament. In the meantime, you'll study along with the team that you meet along the way and recruit along the way the methods in order to free the prince from the spell. Much of Metaphor involves basically traveling to those various lands of Uchronia to grow one's influence. This can be achieved by speaking on stage, engaging in various bounty hunting where you go about those different dungeons or those different towers and you fight around those different enemies. But then there's also another thing that you get to do in Metaphor is you get to form those various bonds with key characters called followers in Metaphor Refantasio and leveling them up to better your chances of fighting, but also this helps in growing your influence as well. As for combat, Metaphor also shines with the studying of various archetypes which serve as classes in RPG games. The archetypes can be learned by each character, can be swapped and whatever and changed to accompany those different enemy strengths and weaknesses, whether it is in a dungeon, climbing up a tower, going in the desert, and so forth. There's a variety of different landscapes in which you fight those different enemies and where there's all these different backgrounds that just looks so much different and paints a perfect picture of how the United Kingdom may look like if it was during those medieval times. And what I also love about Metaphor as well is the character development aspect to it. Like the Persona games, there is also this thing about leveling up those different followers. I mean, they call it followers here as opposed to bonds, but you get the same point. I mean, the major thing is that every single character in which I level up, they all have a unique story to tell in which they can relate to me one way or the other. And throughout the various encounters, there's those numerous plot twists, the many dialogues, as well as the amount of weight the protagonist carry in loving those around him. He really motivates me to become a better person, to become a better leader, and to serve those people that I am entrusted to. Someone who serves others instead of demanding to be served. Someone who doesn't misuse his power to control, but to empower others to take leadership in their own atmospheres of influence. I could go on and on about Metaphor because I love this game to death, and I am most likely planning to do an in-depth review sharing my thoughts of Metaphor later down in the line because this is one of my favorite games of all times. But yeah, to sum it up, if you are somebody who loves these turn-based RPG games and you love the Persona games, but at the same time you like characters that resonate better with you because in this game it is much more adult-like in my opinion. It is not the high school vibes anymore. It is somebody who is going up to become king and also stepping up and taking responsibility. If that is something that more resonates with you, definitely check out Metaphor Refantasio. It will definitely not disappoint. But yeah, friends, these are 100 great games that I will recommend any Steam Deck owner to check out in 2025. Let me know in the comment section below, are there any games in which you would recommend me to check out that's actually not on this list of 100 must-play games? And if you love this type of videos where I give a whole bunch of recommendations of a whole bunch of games, I have a whole playlist that is curated to all list videos. It'll be linked in the end screen. Feel free to check it out. And as always, if you love gaming lists, gaming discussions, gaming reviews, and everything related to Steam Deck, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe so you not miss another video. I try to post Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific time and occasionally on Fridays, so stay tuned. Once again, my name is Joe Wang for the Nomadic Gaming Guild, and game on!